Welcome in to Check the Mic. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson, live on YouTube, coming at you from the Antonio Cromartie studio, in part with Huggies, all brought to you by FanDuel. It's time, Sam, for our Week 14 NFL review.
God, Week 14?
It's already Week 14.
How has that happened?
Not going to lie, I was kind of counting the early wake-ups that we have left remaining.
How many we got left?
It's like 6 more in the regular season, and then whatever we do during the playoffs.
I don't know if it was Thanksgiving or if I'm just, skirting the edges of some kind of flu that the child brings back from school or whatever, but this Monday was the worst so far.
Yeah.
That was rough.
Yeah, fatigue.
Yeah.
I think it's the Thanksgiving weekend probably. All adding up. So like I said, it's 5 more regular season wake-ups, then we got wild card round, and then for divisional round, we could start to play around with it a little bit and maybe just do right after the games, right? I'd like the divisional round being the 6 o'clock games that they have, the 6:30 games now.
Yeah.
So we might be able to do like instant reactions that weekend. So maybe 6 more wake-ups, 6 more early mornings on Monday.
All right.
And then we're into fun off-season mode. If you're just here during the season, off-season's the real fun.
The real fun.
Team building season. Breakdown free agency and the whole deal. So Week 14, we got a lot to get to. Last week of buys, too. So we got a lot of hard work coming up here. How we doing as far as our picks go? Don't tell me.
Yeah, we got a couple of good updates. There's still 20 stubborn people clinging on the Survivor League. It's been very slow losing submissions over the last couple of weeks.
Running out of teams here.
That's what I was wondering. Like, how have there been Survivor pools where 15 people make it to the end? What happens then? Anyway, 20 people remain in the Survivor League. The Pick'em pool is getting fun though. Sam Monson stays top with 115 wins, but a disastrous week from him, maybe karma, who can say, means that Maddox 29 is back with a share of the lead. So those two guys are top with 115 wins. They're now 3 clear of the next 2. I am up to 107, which is now tied for 10th. So up 4 spots from last week.
You're doing well.
Yeah. You inform me you are there at 91 wins, which ties you for 259th.
Sure.
And Harry's got 88, and I won't disclose what that ties him for, but lower.
Very low. I think you're right. I think Harry needs to be relegated.
Benched?
Yeah.
Got to sit him down for his own good.
Teddy's 9 now, as of yesterday.
It's like J.J. McCarthy, soft benching.
I thought you were going to say because I said Teddy's 9.
No.
You said he's like J.J. McCarthy.
No. It's like it's the soft benching. It's like, hey, you're not done. You can come back from this.
To be clear, my son Teddy is 9 years old, not a secret persona named 9.
I think it's time for a conversation with Harry. It's maybe, look, I'm not saying this is the end for you, but maybe it's time. Maybe it's time we let your brother take a couple of swings.
Next year. Him and Teddy and Benny's time to take over. Meanwhile, my 5-year-old Toby, while we're here, I think he knows more about the Reds than he knows, the letters of the alphabet. He's like struggling to write a G.
Yeah.
But he's telling me, hey, Dad, the Reds did this, blah, blah, blah.
This guy's hitting 257.
Yeah. Spencer Steer had 22 home runs last year. I'm like, can you just write a G? Can you just write the letter, please? Can we graduate kindergarten, please? So priorities are maybe out of order. The Palazzolo house right now. We'll sort it out, though. And then the one other thing, we announced it yesterday. We are doing a charity drive for Christmas. You'll see it. I've got a pinned tweet. There'll be a link in the description for YouTube, and then my pinned tweet. It's for Heritage House, men's recovery home that I'm associated with here in Cincinnati. Already have a good start. We put a goal of 2,000. My wife was encouraging the elf spaghetti suggestion. She said if we got up to 2,500, I should do the elf spaghetti suggestion from Mohall, which I'll consider. But if we get to the 2,000, I'll run around the high-class Kenwood Mall in the elf costume.
Walk around. You're not going to be running.
You never know.
I'm just,
I would be out of breath. But I'll walk around. I'll yell out to Santa if it's during, I'm sure it'll be during Christmas time here.
That's right.
So let's get this done.
That's exactly what you should do.
Let's get this.
That scene.
Yeah, I'll do the whole thing.
Santa.
Yeah, I'll have to. Nobody will know it's me.
No.
I did get, when I walked into Home Depot
You getting arrested as elf would be pretty good content.
I'm losing to you in 1-0 in police altercations. We'll say not arrests, but I'm losing to you in police altercations.
Maybe that
so
explains
far.
why my immigration thing just disappeared into a black hole.
We're
Turned out once we
reviewing-
ran the background check, some things popped up from a Super Bowl a couple of years ago.
We had to get 3 federal agencies involved to get your credentials sorted in Phoenix.
Didn't have to, but they were going to be
Considering
involved.
it.
They were on standby, less, if we couldn't find this
And
thing.
I was the one who ratted you out.
You
I'm
were.
like, my man downstairs doesn't have his credential. Can you go take care of that?
You thought you were doing me a favor.
Code red. That's great. So the fundraiser is in link in the description and my pinned tweet. Appreciate everybody for being a part of that. We've raised thousands through the years for various charities. And
I have a tally somewhere, but it's quite a lot. We're up to like 25
15,
grand or
20,000?
something. No, it's more. It's over 20.
And that speaks to all of our listeners and viewers. So appreciate everybody who gets involved. Again, if we get to that 2,000, we'll go to the mall in the elf costume, and maybe we'll get another tipping point. We'll get Sam to dress up and be my, partner in crime as we get arrested. All right, man.
Not sure I can get arrested at the moment without jeopardizing some things.
No, that's true. Yeah, you gotta stay under the radar. Maybe don't dress up.
I was checking.
Maybe don't even be near me.
There's an online application thing where you can check updates and stuff, right? I think this is different from before, but there's now 2 updates from October the 21st, which is when I passed the interview to get through. And then because it initially starts with, we've recommended your thing for approval. Your case was submitted for quality review. And you're like, okay, maybe quality review takes some time. But there's now a second one, which is also October the 21st. It just says your ceremony will be scheduled. And then that's the last I heard of it. That was, 2.5 months ago.
It will be.
Yeah, who knows when, but it will. And that was they're supposed to let you know stuff within 30 days, and it's been significantly longer than that.
You should just keep emailing and bugging them. Just keep bugging people. They love that.
Oh, yeah.
Last thing, we have a full watch-along tonight. Just did one a couple weeks ago, but Cowboys-Lions, we said, man, that is a good game. That'll be fun. We're going to do that. Watch-along tonight. For our members, it'll be open to everybody at the beginning, and then we'll shut it off for members only. Check out all the membership options on YouTube and join us tonight. Huge game, Cowboys and Lions.
Yep.
Which is the first game we're discussing. We ready to go?
Nice. Chat wants to know how much to have my eyebrows shaved. I'm not doing that. As
No.
far as I'm aware, they take way too long to grow back.
Yeah, I don't think we need to do
I can
stuff like
shave
that.
face and head because they grow back quickly. Eyebrows you're looking like Uncle Fester for months.
Yeah, there's no need.
We're not doing that.
There's no need for that.
No. As I showed last year, I'm perfectly happy to, shave stupid facial hair things because you can fix that in a
From the
couple of
nose
weeks.
down, you'll look like an idiot.
Right,
No
absolutely.
problem with that.
You can fix that in a couple of weeks. The
Eyebrows
eyebrows
are
takes
off limits.
longer than that.
Off limits.
Yeah.
Are we ready?
Yeah.
It's the Dallas Cowboys at the Detroit Lions tonight, 8:15, Amazon Prime. Lions favored by 3 here. The 6-5-1 red hot Dallas Cowboys and the just 7-5 Detroit Lions. Both teams trying to save their season. It's an interesting dynamic here as far as momentum and where teams are trending. The way Dallas is coming off this stretch a couple weeks ago that we talked about, facing the Eagles at home, the Chiefs at home. Within 4 days, they beat both of those teams, and now they've got the Lions. This is the third team in that stretch where we said, okay, if Dallas is going to save their season, it's got to happen here. And then for Detroit, a disappointing few weeks here, lost to Philadelphia a couple weeks ago, and then just lost to Green Bay on Thanksgiving. 0 for 7 on fourth down in those 2 games, those 2 losses, which I think is a significant storyline here. Battling some injuries, and so there's a lot here for Detroit trying to avoid going to 7-6, and for Dallas trying to get right back into the playoff picture.
Yeah, huge game for everybody. We already talked before about the playoff leverage on the line in this game. And it's weird that even though, those are 2 pretty huge statement wins for Dallas, Philadelphia and Kansas City. And it still feels like this is the next, litmus test for them. Like, are they actually, is this real? Or is it just, a couple of rounds? Because they're only, 3 weeks away from losing to the Cardinals.
Right. And pretty handily on Monday Night Football. But things are different, right? You've got the post the Marshawn Nealon tragedy, adding Quinnen Williams. You've got, the young players coming back on the defensive side of the ball.
It's also weird because they're maybe this is just because they're the Dallas Cowboys and because this is what ESPN does now. But it's like, they're everybody's, hottest team in the NFL. They're the team you don't want to meet. Like, they still only have a 20% chance of even making it to the postseason. Now, that does jump to 40% if they win this game. So we're getting into coin flip territory if they actually get through this. But this is still an unlikely football team to be playing postseason football, even if they are the best team in the NFL right now, which is, debatable.
Do you have playoff leverage stuff handy?
Yes.
I've got NFL.com's.
Same.
Okay.
You want a different one?
No, I was just wondering. I think Timo's chart is worth referencing, because especially in the Kansas City game. But for the Lions, right now they're at 43% chance to make the playoffs. They're the number 8 seed. Dallas is the number 9 seed. But this is how significant the game is for both teams. With a win, the Lions jump up to 58% chance to make the playoffs. With a loss, down to 23%. Massive playoff implications here. Cowboys are currently at 16. They jump up to 31 with a win, down to just 6 with a loss. So one of these teams is at either 23% or 6% chance to make the playoffs. So it's a long shot either way. Here's the other significance for Dallas. If they can get through this game, their next 4 weeks after that, Minnesota.
Get a lot easier.
Then the Chargers. The Chargers are their toughest game.
Right.
Then it's the Commanders and the Giants. So, yes, there's 2 division games in there, but Dallas, much better teams than both Washington and New York. Chargers are the only team with a winning record remaining on Dallas' schedule after tonight. So, massive game. They'll do the mini bye. It's the 2 Thanksgiving teams getting the 1 week of rest, so they're on similar boat there. And we're going to do the full watch along because it's a huge one, a lot on the line here.
They do probably need to win out though at this point. Like the AFC is a lot easier to make the postseason in than the NFC at the moment because there's a bunch of divisions still up for grabs.
Right.
The problem with the NFC is almost all of the divisions are wrapped up already by somebody in all intents and purposes in terms of a playoff spot. So if you're Dallas, 6-5-1, trying to make the playoffs, San Francisco right now is in the 7th seed with 9 wins already. So you're way back.
As far as the actual game and what we're watching for tonight, it is – look, remember Dallas's defense last year was atrocious against the run early on, and it was so bad that you had to look at it from both angles from an analysis perspective, like, oh, I'm going to expect every team to run all over them. And then on the other hand, it's like, okay, when you're on a historically bad pace, it's really difficult to keep that up. Dallas this year's their pass defense had that historically bad pace. The run defense also wasn't good, but it has been better in recent weeks. Like I don't think their defense was great against Kansas City. They did make a bunch of stops in the middle of the game, but it has been better overall. And then you say, okay, they played the Raiders a few weeks ago. They played the Eagles, who disappear for half a game anyway, and they caused some problems for Kansas City in the middle of the game. Are they that much more improved on the defensive side of the ball? And I look at Detroit, Amon-Ra St. Brown probably not playing because of his injury, and no Sam Laporta. Backups here. Can Detroit get the pass game going, or are they going to rely on Jahmyr Gibbs, who just took over a game a couple weeks ago against the Giants?
Yeah, and even in that Thanksgiving game, like offense wasn't the problem. Even without Amon-Ra St. Brown when he went down, Jameson Williams basically took over the passing game, and they're very different receivers, but he's equally dangerous in terms of what he can do. Like Jameson Williams plus Jahmyr Gibbs equals extreme problems for any defense to deal with, even without Amon-Ra or Sam Laporta or whoever in the lineup. Like just those two alone is an amazing combination of explosiveness, big play potential, and I think they can feed those guys to a pretty high volume as well. Not necessarily just Jameson Williams on his own, but Jameson plus Gibbs I think equals a lot of targets if they want to just run the offense through those two guys. So the Lions are banged up, and that's a big part of this game. They're missing some very important players, but even what they've got left on offense, I think is still plenty capable of really attacking Dallas.
It shows how deep they are, right, is the fact that they've got those two speed players in Gibbs and in Williams, and obviously when they're all healthy, that's what made them one of the best offenses in the league. But the other issue is the offensive line.
Yeah.
Interior of the offensive line. We talked about that Frank Ragnow story briefly.
Remains insane. Came
Came out of retirement for 3 days. His hamstring was falling off. They sent him home and said, okay, this won't work.
The official party line, by the way, is he knew he was dealing with something, but nobody knew the severity of it. And when they scanned it, it's like, oh, Frank, that's a grade 3 tear there. That means you can't walk. You're done. And I was, oh, sorry about that. And off he goes. I simply refuse to believe that the man was unaware that he had. Like, he had a grade 3 hamstring tear, which, again, to remind people, is a complete tear. That is, your hamstring is entirely purple for the length of your body. Like, your entire leg is purple. The hamstring is in half. It's not working. You can't walk. And Frank's like just suffering a twinge walking down the stairs. It's like, this is kind of, don't worry, I'll be fine. I'll get through it. Now, look, I understand Frank's a man with some high pain tolerance, but I refuse to believe that's the case. I don't know if he pulled it working out for them and this is their best attempt at everybody saving face, but I don't believe the official story.
I mean, that's a possibility, right? Like, it just shows up day one. We should have Justin Pugh back on the show to explain, when you come off the couch to play football, just how difficult is that? What kind of shape? Because you always hear about, like, well, football shape's different. Even if you're working out, football shape's different. Did he hurt himself? Either way, doesn't matter a ton because they don't have them, and it's still going to be. It's been a challenge on the interior of the offensive line for the Lions, and again, that's where the Cowboys are much improved with Quinnen Williams helping that run defense. So I think it's a big game for Dan Campbell. Fresh play caller these last few weeks, keeping them on point. When Jared Goff's been at his best, it's this high functioning offense where there's always answers, and he's just finding the open man. And they're going to have to scheme it up well. They're going to have to mix it up and do their best to get the two playmakers who are healthy, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams, get those guys into space. On the other side, I mean, I thought earlier in the year Dak was playing MVP caliber football. He still is, and he's even discussed in the race nowadays because Cowboys are winning. But early in the season, when the defense was terrible, he was still playing at that level. He's number 2 in PFF grade, number 6 at EPA per play from Sam Hoppin's EPA and whatever he's pulling from. 10th in success rate, and this offense is playing great. George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb on the other side, just good luck stopping them with all the injuries in the Lions secondary.
Yeah, they're on the other. They've lost guys like Arnold, Kirby Joseph, but they are getting guys back as well. It's still an injured secondary. It's still banged up, but it's actually better than it was earlier in the season when almost everybody was out. Remember when they ran out of bodies almost completely earlier in the season? So banged up. There's some injuries to be exploited, but I think that side of the ball is a pretty fun contest as well. The other thing I think that's interesting is Dan Campbell's, as he said, now 0-7 in the last 2 weeks on these fourth down calls.
I believe I should check that.
The interesting thing about Dan Campbell is he's not just a guy. Like, we've been waiting for a while for somebody to just sort of religiously stick to the analytics, as Troy and Joe would say, right? When the numbers say go, you go. The thing that was interesting about Dan Campbell is he's more aggressive than the book. Dan Campbell goes when the book says kick. Dan Campbell has been more aggressive than the analytics numbers would say. I wonder what his stomach for that is. Like, this is the first time he's caught a run of like an improbable length of time where all of them have gone against him. Does that make him rethink that? Like, does Dan Campbell suddenly start kicking on some fourth downs, or does he go, I'm due, right? I've bet on black 5 times in a row and it's come up red every time. It's time to double down on red. I'm due red.
I don't think he changes. I mean, it is an interesting dynamic because we talk a lot about fourth downs simply increasing variance in the game.
Yeah.
And normally the underdog wants to increase variance. So it kind of works both ways. Like, the underdog wants to essentially put as many eggs into the basket of one play as possible. But the favorite, because they're the favorite, because they're better, also has an advantage to a point, right? And so, like, it might just get completely washed out in the data. And I know that the downside is, like, the downside significant, right? Like, there's three outcomes, right? It's like, it's best to convert, it's worst if you don't convert, and then in the middle is like you kick a field goal. And you could easily go back through the Eagles game and say, well, man, if he just kicked like 3 or 4 field goals, that game's completely different, right? But that's all hindsight type of analysis. Right. But it's also true, right? Like, when it doesn't work, it hurts. It really, really hurts. And that's what's happened these last couple of weeks with Detroit. So I would assume not much changes for Dan Campbell, because now you've got back against the wall, 7-5. He's not going to change. They're at home, dome. They're going for it, no matter what's going on there. So we'll see if Isaac Tesla had a touchdown the other day
That's all he does. All he does is catch touchdowns.
I mean, I think it's a big game for him as well. I mean, he had just 2 catches for 35 the other day, but we hyped him up a ton in the preseason. Maybe a reason why he wasn't a highly productive college receiver. Is he well-rounded enough? Is he just a big size speed threat? Could they unlock him in this game? And then just keep an eye on George Pickens, man. Dude's playing at an incredible level. A million slants against Kansas City that essentially sealed the game for them. It's going to be fun. We're going to do the full watch along tonight. Hope you join us. Where are you going to go with this game? Detroit favored by 3. Over under, by the way, 54.5. You don't see much higher than that for an NFL game.
I'm going with the Lions. I have more faith in them than the Cowboys.
Everything analytically tells me Dallas. That's how should be where I'm going. I don't want to bet against Detroit, though. I don't want to pick against them. Back against the wall, Dan Campbell's Lions. That's what you're thinking, right?
I mean, I just have more faith in what they've been able to do. I'm not 100% bought into this Dallas thing yet. I also think at some point, if it's this run of 4th down futility for Detroit has to swing back in the other direction at some point, and if it does, there's a huge boost in their favor without doing anything different.
All right, I'll take Dallas. By the way, don't forget, remember the game 2 years ago? There was the Dan Skipper game?
Yeah.
Some history here between these teams. That was a fun little Saturday night a couple years ago when they were 2 of the better teams in the league. So I'm expecting a great game here tonight. I'll take Dallas. Harry's going to take Detroit. And then it is a massive week with playoff implications. Chicago Bears, the number 1 seed in the NFC, at Green Bay, taking on the Packers. It's Sunday at 4:25. I'm glad we got this at the 4:25 window here. And the number 1 seed Bears are underdogs.
Big underdogs.
By 6.5. Green Bay's favored. Over-under is 44.5. Bears are 9-3, and Packers are 8-3-1. Battle for first place in the NFC North.
It is, yeah. Huge game. Not for making the playoffs, but for seeding, obviously, division plus overall NFC seeding. It's kind of, I mean, I get why Chicago is underdogs. The line being as big as it is, I think, is kind of surprising.
No, I agree. Two interesting teams, right? Obviously, the Bears have won a ton of these one-score games, and then they're coming off their most emphatic win against Philadelphia, beat them by 9 because the Eagles went for 2 early. Beat them by 9 last week on Black Friday, 280 yards on the ground for the Bears. Mm-hmm. And you've got the Packers, who I think most weeks look like one of the best teams in the league, but they just lay an egg every now and again. Against the Panthers, against the Browns, in some key games, don't show up, but they definitely showed up on Thanksgiving last week against the Lions. Jordan Love playing some great football, getting the ball down the field. Christian Watson has added some big playability to that offense as well. I think the story for me is like double variance on both sides. It's the Bears threading this needle of close wins, and then the Packers, their style is really threading the needle this year. They've had an inconsistent run game, and it's a lot of 3rd and longs and Jordan Love making big time throws on key downs.
Yeah.
So it's almost like both ends are a little variance, right? It's like they're threading the needle, and so something's got to give in this one.
It does. Injuries, I think, are a pretty important part of this game. The Bears are getting healthier on defense. All those linebackers that we talked about, where they were so banged up a week ago, and how deep into the depth chart they had been forced. Most of those guys are coming back. T.J. Edwards, Noah Sewell were both back at practice, and that was a Tuesday before they even needed to cough up an injury report. So that's pretty indicative, I think, that they will play in this game. That's important because I think Green Bay is the type of offense that will target those guys. We talked, Philadelphia didn't do anything to put those linebackers in any kind of conflict. Green Bay will. So them being back in the lineup is pretty important. However, Rome Odunze, Kyle Monangai, one of those running backs that went for $125 plus or whatever it was last week, and Tyreek Stevenson are all injury questions for them. Those are 3 pretty important players to potentially be missing.
Monangai's become their power back, right? I mean, what we saw.
I mean, that 1-2 punch, obviously last week was an extreme version, but that 1-2 punch of Monangai and Swift has been really good.
Really has been. And look, it's easy to compare to the Lions and David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't think either. I mean, Monangai could be as good as David Montgomery. I wouldn't compare DeAndre Swift to Jahmyr Gibbs just yet.
No.
But it's probably the best Swift has played in his entire career.
Yeah.
More decisive. You feel the speed and the quickness that he brings to the table, I think, more than ever. And I love that combined with Monangai's power and just ability to pick up yards after contact and, turn even just a 2-yard gain into 5 and just, create headaches for the defense. So I think for the Bears, still a fascinating spot because Caleb Williams has been inconsistent, but then you see him just drop an absolute dime, rolling to his left with the game on the line or to seal the game essentially against the Eagles the other day. Like the special plays are in there. He's avoiding sacks at an incredible rate compared to last year. So there's a lot to like about Caleb Williams' game. It really is just hit a few more throws for him. Hit a few more of these open throws, and this offense can be that much more dangerous. So I'm seeing the Bears' vision all coming together, which is the run game, the offensive line. We joked, other people have joked, or we talked about in the offseason, did the Bears win the offseason again? And it's, they do this every year. But this year, the offensive line enhancements are showing up. And that's why they can have a game like last week against Philadelphia. So I'm seeing the offensive vision for Ben Johnson, and I still have faith in Caleb Williams developing, and just, man, if he starts hitting a few more throws, they're that much more dangerous.
The thing that's really changed for Caleb Williams this year is, there's a lot of data points that look very similar to last year, and if you sort of looked at it in totality, you'd be like, has he really gotten any better? But when you watch the games, you're like, no, look, he's clearly better than he was a year ago, and the big thing I think that's changed is he's not taken anywhere near as many sacks. And it's not that he's sped up in terms of getting rid of the ball. He's still holding onto the ball in age. He's just, I don't know if the game mentally has slowed down for him, but his escapability is back to like USC levels of escapability where he was like impossible to corral for college defenses. He's back doing that in the NFL now. Last season, his pressure to sack rate was insane. It was almost 30%, which is like abysmally terrible for a quarterback. And this year it's down towards 10%, that's a really good benchmark for a quarterback. So he's gone from like literally one end of the spectrum to the other in terms
10%'s insanely good.
Right. So he's gone from one end of the spectrum to the other in terms of how likely you are to sack the guy if you put him under pressure. And that alone is extending drives. Like that is keeping the Bears ahead of the chains. That's keeping them. It's not killing drives. Last year, every time he took one of those ridiculous sacks, it was like, drive's dead right now. Doesn't matter what you do from here on in, or at least, you now have to make a crazy 3rd and 15 conversion to keep this thing alive. Just avoiding those negative plays is keeping these drives alive, particularly when the run game is vastly improved and those types of things. So I think that's the area where Caleb Williams has gotten a load better. And all the other stuff is still there in terms of like he can get more accurate, he can get more consistent, he can still all those other things are still there for him to get better at.
If you look at pressure to sack percentage, all of the players who are at the top, lowest, the best end, a lot of winning teams up there. Brock Purdy's really good. Bo Nix, Dak Prescott, Jordan Love is up there. The only guys with losing records up there, Joe Flacco, Michael Penix Jr.
Yeah.
But Caleb Williams is up there, Sam Darnold, Matthew Stafford, Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield. Like, it's a pretty good list. Mahomes is usually up there. Josh Allen's usually up there. They're not having as good a years as far as sack avoidance goes, but it's a key. When people talk about hidden yards, it's because you don't always look at sacks in a QB's box score, and Caleb Williams has done a really good job of that. But and really quick, like a lot of quarterbacks avoid sacks by just getting rid of the ball and throwing the ball on time. Caleb Williams is doing it a lot with his athleticism, which is pretty impressive how he's done. And then balancing that out with scramble yards and key scrambles. I mean, that's where I think Caleb Williams has been really good this year.
And this is why, the nerds focused on those sort of pressure to sack rates, like to a psychotic degree, right? There was a period of time where like, this is the most important thing in the game, this stat, right? And, as is usually the case with these things, there's a kernel of truth there. Like, it is an important area. And, when you look at drive success rate when there's a big negative play, right? Whether it's a sack, a penalty, a holding penalty, or whatever, the number of drives that those things just almost immediately kill is huge. So it is a really important data point. Like if you have a quarterback who's getting sacked almost a third of the time he's pressured, it's almost impossible for that guy to be executing like a high-level offense and therefore for their team to be winning football games consistently. Equally, if you have a guy who almost never takes sacks when he's pressured, that's a very good thing. Like it means the offense is not putting itself in crappy situations nearly as much as most other teams in the NFL. So it's a really important data point. And I think Caleb Williams this year is actually a fascinating case study for that whole dynamic because in most other ways, his data, his numbers are not improving in any way, shape, or form from last year. But in this one specific area, that combination that you just talked about, sack rate and the scrambles, he's night and day better than he was a year ago.
He's going to be high in Scrack.
Scrack,
Can we get a Scrack update?
There you go. His
Where's
Scrack,
Sam? Scrack update's got to be.
He must have the largest year-on-year Scrack jump of
Big
anybody.
Time. Can we get Sam on this? Can we get some Scrack jump history? Well, the other part of it is it's supposed to be this really stable number year over year, and Caleb's bucking that trend. No, not just pressure sack percentage. The other part, then you have the Micah Parsons deal on the other side against this Bears offensive line, and they've been much better in pass protection. Let's see how they handle Micah Parsons and his ability to move around and create pressure. We've also got just Jordan Love on the other side, depending on your EPA of preference. He's number one, I believe, in some or most. Again, I think there's some variance to that. That's like incredible on third and longs, but that's exactly what he did in that stretch in 2023, the Toyotathon stretch.
Toyotathon.
And so that's the thing about Love. When we did our NFC North preview at the beginning of the year, this was right before Parsons was added to the Packers. I said, look, I like the Lions roster better. I like the Vikings roster better. Steve's not a complete idiot. Their quarterback play has been awful. I still think that's a good roster. But I thought the Packers had the most high-end potential at the quarterback position. That if Jordan Love could play to the best of his ability, that's a tick above Goff or a tick above what Caleb Williams or whatever Minnesota could put out there, and that could be the difference for Green Bay. And I think we're seeing elements of that with Love and getting the ball to Christian Watson, getting the ball to those receivers, doing it without Tucker Kraft. And I think that's a huge part of Green Bay's success here.
Yeah, he's playing really well right now. That game on Thanksgiving was pretty spectacular. He's getting close to that level where he was a couple of years ago. We're down the stretch, second half of the season. He was absolutely locked in and wasn't just more efficient, but was deadly accurate. Pinpoint passes, crazy accuracy in the end zone, putting the ball high and away from a defender so that Christian Watson can snag it down, those types of things. He's getting pretty close to that level again, and that version of Jordan Love is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
Last thing to just put some color to that, we did both work at PFF for over a decade.
True.
A lot of times you'll see a PFF season grade in the 80, 85 or 90 or whatever, and because it's cumulative, you'll see a lot more players in the 80s and 90s. Having a 90 game grade for a quarterback is really difficult to do. That's an extremely high-end game, and Love has had a bunch of those. A couple of those the last few weeks here, and that run in 2023. So I'm almost describing him the way I used to describe Stafford, where the very best of Jordan Love is top 3 quarterback play. Doesn't do it every week. It's tough to bottle it up, but when he has it, and it's also stylistically similar to Stafford, not so much no-look passes, but it's the fadeaways you talked about on Monday morning. It's this feel and this confidence, and Love's in that zone 2 out of these last 3 weeks here. So just something to keep an eye on if he could continue to play. Again, it was MVP ball that he played on Thanksgiving. 18 of 30 for 234 and 4 touchdowns. I don't care what the stat line says. The 4 touchdowns are great. He played incredible on Thanksgiving. If he continues that, Packers are really tough to beat.
We talked about the loss of Devontae Wyatt coming out of Thanksgiving, the Green Bay defensive tackle, in particular because of how well Micah Parsons works off the back, in combination with Devontae Wyatt. Those two, Wyatt on the defensive line right up the middle, and then Parsons working off the back of his block or his attack and running an arc into a gap. Does that have not just the effect of losing Devontae Wyatt, but the knock-on effect of diminishing the kind of Micah Parsons prowess as well?
All right, man. We got to make picks here. Packers by 6.5. A huge number.
I think that's rich. I'm going with Chicago to at least cover that. Maybe Green Bay wins, but I think the Bears cover almost a touchdown.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'll take the Bears. I'll take the underdogs, at least keeping it close. I think we'll see a great game Sunday, 4:25. Sunday night, Houston Texans at the Kansas City Chiefs. Massive playoff implications here. Texans are 7-5. Chiefs are 6-6. The Chiefs are favored, though, by 3.5. Over/under just 41.5 on FanDuel.
I think we've reached the point now. Kansas City, this is do or die. Like, they actually need this game to basically stay alive. Not entirely, it's still mathematically possible, but realistically, for all intents and purposes, this game is their season. According to NFL.com, if they win, they only get back to a coin flip to make the playoffs. They get to 48% even if they win this game. They're currently at 34%. So they're currently 1-3, effectively, chance to make the playoffs. If they lose, their playoff probability drops all the way to 11%. So this is basically, if they don't win this game, the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending AFC champion and consecutive, however many million straight they've been in the championship game, they're done.
This is down to 11% if they lose. I think Timo has similar numbers.
Yeah.
He's got them closer to 60% if they win.
Ooh.
And but 12, 13% if they lose.
Right.
Because what Kansas City has left, they've got two what should be gimmies against the Raiders and the Titans. So say you add 2 wins to their total there. And then their other 2 games, Chargers and Broncos. And the Broncos, I know Broncos fans were joking, like, what if Christmas night, week 17, we've got this thing locked up and we're just sitting our starters against Kansas City. We don't care. It's probably not going to happen because New England is, they're right there. Who knows? But I'm assuming Denver's going to try to play and win that game on Christmas night, which is a challenge. It's in Kansas City. One scheduling quirk, by the way, that's in Kansas City's favor, because we have a 17-game schedule now. Every team, it's not like 8-8 home and away games.
Right.
You're going to have 9. They have 9 true home games this year and only 7 true road games because one of their road games was in Brazil against the Chargers. So in this season where the Chiefs are sitting here at 6-6, they actually have this scheduling advantage where one of their 8 road games was actually a neutral site game, so you don't really have that effect. And so they're actually in this pretty good spot, I would say, where it's Denver coming to Kansas City, it's the Chargers coming to Kansas City, and then their 2 easy games, so to speak, are on the road, Raiders and Titans. So those are the 4 games they have after this game. 2 big ones in Arrowhead, two games where they're going to be 10-point favorites on the road. And that's why it's so much on this game. In Arrowhead again, but against a hot Texans team.
The overall point, I think, though, is basically just the margin for error is nothing. I mean, Timo also has an interesting data point where he's put out the playoff chances at given win totals for teams, right? Kansas City right now is at 6 wins, right? So if they only win 3 games down the stretch, 3 out of 5, he puts them at a 5% chance of making the playoffs. So basically no shot.
So 4-1 or better.
If they win 5 games, if they win out from this point on, he has them at 98% chance of making the playoffs. So if they win out, they're still good. If they win 4 of the 5, if they go 4-1 down this stretch, they're only at 55%. So basically, if Kansas City wants to, effectively guarantee that they will still be in this playoff run, they need to win out. If they drop this game, they're in real trouble.
Oh, this is it, man. This is season on the line.
It really is. Like, this has got to be one of the most crazy, high leverage, individual, random not mid-season, but like late to mid-season. We're not in week 18, you know what I mean? There have been games that obviously determine are you in or out in week 18. This is like week 14, and this is kind of an in or out game for the Chiefs.
On Sunday Night Football. It's going to be great. So, and we'll talk about the Texans side of this in a second. The other part for Kansas City here is Josh Simmons, rookie left tackle, broken wrist, was it? He's on IR, so he's out. Jawan Taylor, the right tackle, left the game on Thanksgiving. They could be sitting there with Jalen Moore as a backup tackle. They signed him to be the starter, but we're probably looking at Jalen Moore at right tackle and Wanye Morris at left tackle.
Which, by the way,
Wanye's really struggled.
Sounds crazy. Mitchell Schwartz was making this point. Like, I would love to hear their rationale for making Jalen Moore flip sides, having been playing him at left tackle while Josh Simmons was away. Why are they flipping that now? That doesn't seem sensible at all.
I don't know. Wanye's been the swing. He's played more as a swing tackle each of the last 2 years. He's filled in on both sides. Jalen Moore has played left tackle for the Niners last year and this year for the Chiefs.
Yeah, and look, I mean, he may have become the swing tackle when Josh Simmons won the left tackle job, but you've already had him out there playing at left tackle, and you now need both starting tackles. It just seems crazy to me to make him be the one that swaps sides. Like, you have to be crazy confident that Wanya Morris is so much better on the left side than the right side, just naturally.
Unless it's a Will Anderson thing, and you're going to see more Will Anderson going up against right tackle.
Like the opposite side is Donnell Hunter. I mean,
I know.
She pick your poison.
So that's the other piece of this storyline here. We know a lot of the, say, poor Mahomes games we've seen through the years, a couple Super Bowls and everything. It's when the offensive line got absolutely wrecked or had backups in there, and now they're going up against this Texans defense that has the two fierce edge rushers in Will Anderson and Donnell Hunter. They could also rush the passer up the middle. They do a nice job, sprinkling in the blitz. So a lot of pressure, perhaps, on Mahomes. Underlying metrics for the Chiefs, again, I don't think they're a far cry off from where they were last year. And, they're losing all the one-score games this year. They won all of them last year. I think part of the differences are the defense over these last few weeks. I thought they were outstanding down the stretch against the Colts. They couldn't make a stop against Dallas. Weeks 9 through 13, 33rd team, research team here, 50% third down conversion rate against Kansas City's defense. And that's last in the league. So over these last few weeks, when they've played Denver, the Colts, they gave up a few, and against Dallas last week, when they're trying to get off the field, get Kansas City's offense back on the field, they've been unable to. Again, they did it great against the Colts down the stretch, but the first half of that game wasn't great either. So can Houston, now on the other side, this defense, and think about how many times we woke up on a Monday morning and we're like asking the teams that played against the Texans were like, man, they've got some problems offensively. Right? They're one of those defenses that has you rethinking life offensively the next day. Can they do that to Kansas City? Because they're one of the best in the league at marrying the pass rush, the coverage unit with Derek Stingley, Kamari Lassiter on the outside. It's going to be quite a matchup. Yeah,
it's just a brutal week for Kansas City to be down your pair of starting offensive tackles and have to run up against those pass rushers. It would have been a really interesting game with both those starting tackles out there, going up against this pass rush and how Mahomes would handle it. I mean, a do-or-die game going up against this defense without your two tackles is a brutal assignment for Kansas City. I mean, that, to me, it's like, have they got any shot of getting this working?
I think they do, because Rashee Rice is going to play in the slot.
Yeah.
You can kind of hide him from Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter. I think that's an advantage. As the Texans are great on the outside. They're pretty good in the middle of the field as far as linebackers and Jalen Petrie in the slot. I know we've got these games in our head where Kansas City, their offensive line gets whooped, but they also have plenty of games where they take really good pass rushes and they put those guys in a blender with screen game, with misdirection. And I think we're going to see playoff Chiefs as far as the game plan. Keep an eye on this. If you see a speed option early in the game, Sam, they've got the playoff game plan. For some reason, Andy Reid likes to start with a quick speed option.
Speed option in the playoffs?
Early on the early script. If you see a little speed option, we're just going to get Mahomes, put a little indecision into the edges and pitch it out to the running back. A little speed option early on to set the tone for the Chiefs. They have it. So I'm expecting all their best, right? The fake sprint outs, double sprint outs, play action, full screen game. Kelsey, right? There's a play in the playoffs last year where Kelsey's wide open over the middle of the field. And that's the thing about the Texans defense, right? The reason why a team like the Texans or the Broncos are so good defensively, it's not that they're perfect down to down. It's that they're so good rushing the passer and so good in coverage, but they still have coverage busts. The Texans the last 2 years have had a ton of coverage busts. But because the pressure gets home and the quarterback's rushed, they're not always taken advantage of. So I think that's what this game comes down to. Like, there'll be some opportunities in the middle of the field, and if the rush gets home, it saves them. If Mahomes can see it, either avoid pressure, make one or two of those plays, I think that's the difference on that side of the ball.
I mean, he's been doing it all season long, but this is going to require a freaky Patrick Mahomes game of avoiding sacks. Like, he's going to have to do some witchcraft in the pocket, getting away from those edge rushers, scrambling for positive gains, just avoiding those negative plays. I think it's a really tough assignment for this Chiefs offense.
Other side of the ball, you've got C.J. Stroud, one game back from his concussion. I thought he played pretty well last week against the Colts. They're running the ball a little bit better. Another research stat here, since week 5, the Texans are one of those teams using 6 offensive linemen. They're number 1 now, 33% on normal down and distance. So they're going to try to maybe play a little bit bigger against Kansas City. I don't know if that's the best way to go here. Again, I think Kansas City's run defense is a little hit or miss, and against good run games, they might struggle. I don't know if the Texans have the run game to sit there and, get 3 and get 5 and get 6 and slow the game down. I think Stroud's going to have to make some plays.
Yeah.
In the emergence of Jaden Higgins and Nico Collins, the teams that have beaten up on the Chiefs defense the last couple of weeks have done it with their outside receivers. Cortland Sutton making plays and George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb making plays. I think those outside receivers have to make plays against Spags' defense here.
And how does Spagnuolo come after this offensive line? Like, this is a line with a very clear weakness. I mean, it is a line that is a very clear weakness. Elite defensive lines, elite pass rushes have been able to cause Houston all kinds of issues. And I think that undermines or causes the entire offense to disintegrate. On the top of that, if Stroud has a halfway decent offensive line in front of him, I think he's still a really good quarterback, and that receiving core is great. If he doesn't, if Kansas City can, take that foundation stone away, then they've got a real shot. But this Chiefs pass rush hasn't been as dominant this year as it's been in the past. Like, they need to show up. Like, this is, again, playoff football time. Chris Jones needs to put on, the big boy pants, go out there and just wreck shop and destroy that offensive line.
The one matchup that I'm interested in, if anything changes, Derek Stingley never travels to the slot. He's almost always exclusively left cornerback. I don't think he's even been, nobody's even throwing his way. That's Kansas City's offense doesn't need to feed their outside receivers to work, right? I think Rashee Rice has been the guy.
Yeah.
Those crossing routes when Mahomes has needed to play these last few weeks, and you see Mahomes' production bumping up as Rice has gotten into the lineup these last few weeks. I wonder if this is a game to play man. The Chiefs splits too against man coverage versus zone. They are far better against zone than against man. Do you do what the Bills have been wanting to do these last couple of years and say, this is our season. This is the way you have to slow down the Chiefs. We're going to man up. It's not necessarily what we do. Put Stingley on Rice, follow him around, take him out, and go ahead, beat us with Kelsey. Go ahead, beat us with Xavier. Make Xavier Worthy play a full game, a clean, outside the numbers. I'm interested to see if they do it because it's not in their nature. Just like it's not in the Bills' nature, but they were willing to do it in a big game.
And it's also, this year more than previous seasons, it's dangerous because, like, Rashee Rice is clearly their number one target and the guy you want to take away. But the two guys you're going to be leaving isolated on outside coverage with one-on-one outside coverage with guys that are your number 2, 3, and 4 corners are devastating speed guys. That's always terrifying for a team. Like, Tyquan Thornton, is he a particularly good wide receiver relative to the rest of the NFL? No. Has he already shown that he can put up an 80-yard touchdown, if you give him space? Yes. And this is the problem. Like, you could dedicate Derek Stingley to Rashee Rice and potentially take him out of the lineup, but every single one of those plays is now blinking you're over with Tyquan Thornton and Xavier Worthy. And Mahomes, the efficiency hasn't been good on those deep shots, but he's definitely shown willingness to attack this year down the field.
All right, last thing. We saw this matchup twice down the stretch last year, both in Kansas City. So another game in Kansas City. We saw it in Week 16, that Saturday game. Stroud had 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, only sacked twice in that game, and then in the playoffs, then was when it was really falling apart. 8 times he got sacked. Stroud was making throws, but they had a lot of those negative plays against this Spags defense. I think it's going to come down. Like if Stroud has a game where he only gets sacked once or twice, makes a couple of those downfield throws, which he's absolutely capable of, I think the Texans have a shot here. If Spags gets back to blitzing and creating havoc against this Texans offensive line. And Woody Marks, by the way, the number of times that Woody Marks was stepping up against the blitz last week against the Colts, might have to do that 8 or 10 times in this game. I mean, I really think it might come down to a few plays on that side of the ball to give the Texans a chance here. They're 7-5. They're hot. Kansas City, biggest non-Week 18 playoff leverage game of the Mahomes era. It's going to be awesome Sunday night.
Yeah. I think one difference potentially, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, but one difference is potentially those tackles both being missing with Kansas City. I know they were missing, like, certainly in the playoffs, that was Joe Thuney playing left tackle at that point. So it's not like they were fully healthy then, but they at least had one on the right side.
All right, man. Chiefs by 3.5. Sunday night, over under 41.5. Where are you going to go with it?
I'm going to go with Houston covering that number, even if they're not winning.
Oh, man, so much of me is saying Houston. Just like I was saying Dallas earlier, and I went with Dallas. Something about Kansas City with their back against the wall, though, that I don't want to pick against.
Do or die time. It's a playoff game for Kansas City.
I hate that. I mean, if it was
we know
3,
playoff Chiefs.
I mean, if it was 2.5 or something, I'd definitely take Kansas City. I'll take them anyway, though. Take the Chiefs by 3.5.
Okay.
Harry's going to take Houston. Should be a great game Sunday night.
I have an important update before we get to the next game. Our buddy Sam Schwarzenstein got back to me about Caleb Williams' scrack jump.
Oh, we got a scrack update. Just stitch this on to the Packers-Bears.
So the numbers, if you're unfamiliar with scrack, are relatively abstract. So don't focus on those too much. But this season, Caleb is 7th best in scrack. And this is a composite of basically sacks and scramblings.
It's EPA.
Yeah.
So EPA, obviously you lose EPA usually on a sack.
Right.
You gain EPA on a scramble.
Usually.
It's going to be negative for almost every quarterback this total in the league. Last year, Josh Allen was so good at sack avoidance plus scrambles. So he was the only guy that was in the positive.
Basically, this is an evaluation of how much damage limitation is a quarterback's escapability doing to an offense.
Yeah.
Right. That's effectively what we're talking about here. So this year, Caleb Williams is 7th best in the NFL at negative 17. Last year, he was negative 103, which is by far the worst in the NFL. So he's gone from literally the worst quarterback in the league at this to top 10.
Incredible.
That's the difference we were talking about. The data backs us up. Sam Schwartzstein, Amazon Analytics, it's endorsing our eyes right in front of us.
I love it. Appreciate it. Thank you, Sam. Look at that, real time. It's like real-time fact checker for us. Mm-hmm. Big fan of scrack.
big scrack fan.
The next primetime game, it's Monday night. Philadelphia Eagles at the Los Angeles Chargers. Eagles favored by 2.5, over under 40.5. My kids are excited for this game. This is the Monsters, Inc. game. We have a Monsters, Inc. version of this. You know how they had the Simpsons version and they've had the different versions?
Yeah.
This is a Monsters, Inc. game.
Huh.
They will have a Monsters, Inc. broadcast for this game.
Where do they show those?
One of the other ESPN. It's probably on ESPN Plus. If it's on Unlimited, though, kids are going to be disappointed. I'm going to have to do the day pass for Unlimited, which is probably $50.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Now I got to look into this. Shouldn't have promised them the Monsters, Inc. game. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Monday night, Justin Herbert had surgery on his left wrist. He's been listed as day-to-day. He should be good to go. He's expecting to go. I don't know, somewhere on the left. Left appendage.
They're saying hand.
Hand.
Yeah.
Sure. Left hand.
Right.
He had like the tin dude on Tin Cup. That's what his hand looked like the other day.
Dude on Tin Cup?
Not Tin Cup. The bowling one.
Kingpin.
Kingpin. I said the other one.
Great movie.
Yeah, that's what his hand looked like the other day. It's just like this like fake hand that he walked out with, all taped up, taking snaps. I don't know if that affects their under center game at all. The Chargers.
Maybe.
Taking snaps under center.
Yeah.
It's like Rodgers had the wrist. And they went to the pistol.
Right.
And, that it limits what you're able to do.
Yeah, I mean, this was being talked about as stabilizing the fracture. So they put a plate and multiple screws into his left hand to stabilize this fracture, according to Daniel, what the hell? Daniel R. Popper is his Twitter name.
Chargers guy.
I was assuming that was that was just a first name, second name deal, and then I'm like, hang on, what?
Daniel or Popper.
Right. I was in my head, I was trying to work out how R can begin before P and create a name, and it wasn't working. The brain wasn't braining. So yeah, I mean the fact that he came back into the game last week and was functional suggests that we should be okay. He's, I'm sure, going to be dealing with some pain management, but I don't think it's going to be a massive problem.
Fun game though, man. This is two of the winningest coaches. I saw some of the numbers, I think it's the highest winning percentage across two coaches going head to head or something like that historically. Jim Harbaugh against Nick Sirianni.
Not the two you would think of if you were plucking that out of the sky.
Harbaugh, and it's interesting because most of the a lot of the highest winning percentage coaches are the Don Shula's and Bill Belichick's and coaches that have had great quarterbacks through the years, and you don't have that necessarily from, no offense to Jalen Hurts, but you don't have that clear elite quarterback, right? They're just good teams, and Jim Harbaugh in particular has done it across multiple QBs, right? One with Alex Smith, one with Colin Kaepernick, winning with Justin Herbert. They're doing it's not this quarterback carrying these guys, so it's a fun matchup here.
Yeah, I mean, look, the first thing I think is we just saw the Bears absolutely bully this Eagles defense, which was a new development in their season that's been so weird, so hit or miss. The defense had been spectacular the last few weeks and had really been carrying the team, and then Chicago just hammered them for almost 300 yards on the ground. And it's like, where did that come from? So, I mean, the Chargers want to run the football as much as a lot of teams. They're getting Marion Hampton back in this game, right? So that 1-2 punch of Hampton and Vidal, what can they do? Can they rack up 200 rushing yards on the ground? Can they try and take some of the pressure off Justin Herbert and his hurt hand and run the ball at will over this Philadelphia defense? Or do they figure out in the last week, well, number one, was it just a blip? And number two, if it wasn't, do they figure out the solution for that in the last week or so of practice? That, I think, is a particularly interesting element of it. And then the other side of the ball, obviously, is Philadelphia's offense remains in this malaise. Do they ever get out of that?
Yeah, as far as the Chargers go against this Eagles front, again, I like the way you described it. It's like a new development.
Yeah.
The Eagles.
And not a good one.
You would not expect – I mean, when you go back and watch the defensive tackles, like Jordan Davis was okay. Jalen Carter was not. Moro Ojomo was not. The linebackers were not. And those are all good players.
Yeah.
Like the whole front seven. I still don't think it's as good of a dominant front four pass rush that the Eagles have had in previous years or in last year's Super Bowl team on their team. But they're good. They're good against the run. They should be good. So that shouldn't happen. And, credit the Bears and that offensive line. Now, the Chargers' offensive line, this is a whole different story. Yeah. Do we trust them at all?
No.
Either in the run game or in pass protection. And that's where I think it could be a little different. Eagles should have the advantage. And if they're a little pissed off at how last week went, they have a chance to bounce back pretty strong here.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't trust them in pass protection. The run game is a little different, I think. I mean, the Chargers, they've got some big bodies up there, like some guys that can move people. They might not have the quickness, they might not have the fundamentals to be able to hold up in pass protection, but they might be able to, man up in the run game and just move some bodies.
And then I think that's going to be huge. I think I don't focus on the run game a ton in a lot of games. I think if the Chargers if they cannot run the ball, I think they're going to have some trouble getting throwing the ball against this Eagles pass defense. They've done a really nice job tightening throwing windows. Vic Fangio does a really nice job. Chargers have some weapons, but Herbert with the injury, there's a lot of pressure on him, I think, in this game. The Chargers also, just from a season perspective, highlighted this on Monday. Like, this is their stretch. Like I was talking about the Chiefs and how they have pretty much two gimmies, say, against the Raiders and the Titans. You don't have that for the Chargers. Eagles this week on Monday, they're coming right back to Kansas City the following week. They're at Dallas, and then they've got the Texans and Broncos. And so the last 2 weeks of the season, two of the best 2, 3, 4 defenses in the league, in the Texans and Broncos. Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys ahead of that. It's a rough stretch here for the 8-win Chargers. What do they need? What do they need to get to 10 wins? They're at 8-4 because they're 2 games up on Kansas City.
Yeah,
but you could almost
all those
they
teams
need to win at least 2 of these next 5, right?
Yeah, all those teams in the wild card spots right now, they're all sitting there with the same record. The Chargers at the moment have the 3-way tiebreaker, but effectively they have the lowest percentage of making the playoffs of any of those 3 teams because their schedule is tougher. But those teams are basically staving off the teams below them. So they're the team that's trying to keep ahead of the Texans and the Chiefs. So actually, in a weird way, it helps the Chargers if Kansas City wins that game, just because they already have Kansas City by a couple of games. They're only a game ahead of the Texans. So if Houston wins that game, and then they're still one game on the Chargers' tail
next week. They have their chance to.
There's still one game on the Chargers' tail if Houston wins the game, even if the Chargers win this week. If the Chargers lose, suddenly they're right, they're in. I don't know who has the tiebreaker there, but they're basically level.
Kamani Vidal and then, Marion Hampton coming back, though. I think if they can get that going, Vidal's run well. Hampton has that big playability.
Yeah.
So that side of the ball is going to be fun. Other side of the ball, figure out the Eagles. Figure it out. They have A.J. Brown made a ton of plays against the Bears last week. He is still more than capable of taking over a game. Maybe not as much as he was a few years ago, but he's there, right? A.J. Brown can play special football any given week.
We've said this before all the time. You can always find an extreme take on anything. Somewhere out there's a guy throwing out a hot take that's just crazier than anything you can think of. But just in our little world orbit, before the season, Nick Wright would sort of floated out there that if you wanted to make the case, I'm not going to do it, but you could construct the take that Jalen Hurts is actually the best quarterback in the NFL because he's the guy who just won in the Super Bowl against Mahomes, who obviously is Nick's greatest quarterback in the NFL. He's the guy that you could actually build a case around that as being the best quarterback in the NFL. And here we are, week 14, and I saw the Ringer fantasy football guys saying that during the last game of futility with this offense, Danny Heifetz was like, I wonder if Tanner McKee would do better than Jalen Hurts. You know what I mean? So we've gone from, I think you can argue that he's the best quarterback in the NFL, however tenuous that is, to bench him for Tanner McKee. That's where we've gone in the space of 14 weeks of NFL action because this offense is so problematic.
What was Dan O's take before this? It was Jalen Hurts is the best. It's one of those he's on top of the to be the man, you got to beat the man type of deals, right? And he's the man, so you got to Super Bowl champ.
And obviously those are the extremes of this, but I do think his stock has fallen a lot from just this season. He's gone from this guy's just money. He's dialed in. He's a big player when they need him. He's the thing that drives this offense. To how come Jalen Hurts keeps operating these flawed offenses?
As I tweeted during the game, this is the worst offense I've ever seen with a quarterback with a 17-1 touchdown to interception ratio.
Is that what he is there?
That's what he was. And then he threw a pick two plays later.
Okay.
He's now at 19-2. And so, look, touchdown to interception ratio is...
Which is almost the same as Jordan Love, who's MVP case now.
Yeah. Touchdown to interception ratio is very overrated because you're describing 21 plays of Jalen Hurts season. However...
Which may or may not have had anything particularly usul to do it.
That might have been I know, off the top of my head, I know he has 2 underhanded touchdown passes, and he's got other turnover-worthy plays that weren't caught. But overall, they've done a really nice job of taking care of the ball, but they're going into those lulls, right? What's their I think their 3-and-out rate is among the worst in the league. I don't know what the solution is to that. The other stat that I put out there yesterday is Saquon Barkley over the last few years, and just looking at his yards per carry, he's down at 3.8 right now. And I did try to look during the game, are they just missing the explosive plays? They're not. Just all of the efficiency in the run game. But Saquon Barkley's yards per carry, 2021, he was at 3.7. 22, that really nice season the Giants had, he was up to 4.4. Then he was at 3.9. Then the Eagles trade for him or sign him, and he goes up to 5.8 last year, and now he's back to 3.7. I mean, he's under 4 yards per carry in 3 out of the last 5 years with this one. Like, was last year just the anomaly. The O-line was great. First year with Hurts. The pass game was more efficient, so it just worked extremely well. And he was rattling off these 50, 60-yarders every other week. 5.8 yards per carry last year. And now he's back to 3.7. No room to run, O-line issues, injuries. Like, the Eagles need to find not balance, but just some sort of higher percentage offensive plays.
Which is also, by the way, the worst of any of the Eagles running backs. Now, okay, he's got like 1 million more carries than any of the other guys, but like every other Eagles running back this year is averaging more than Saquon Barkley is. So it's this fascinating dynamic of when, if you put him behind the best offensive line in the NFL, we saw last year, he is a 2,000-yard runner who's capable of taking basically any random run to the house. I do think that Saquon Barkley is not a particularly good running back behind an offensive line that isn't opening up fairly significant holes. I think we saw that with the Giants, that there's something about the way he wants to play the game that doesn't maximize, not great situations. It actually potentially makes those things look a little bit worse. So I think his inclination to big game hunt when it comes to running is not necessarily working behind an offensive line that isn't generating a ton of room. And I don't even think that's necessarily the offensive line's fault. I think this is another indication of this Eagles offense not being as creative and as diverse as it needs to be. It's too predictable.
All right, man. Fun game. It's Monsters, Inc. By the way, really quick, we did have a question in the chat. Yes, Rashawn Slater's been out the entire season, the original starting left tackle. Joe Alt replaced him at left tackle. Then he got hurt for a bit, came back, and then he got hurt, out for the season. So I think it's funny because we were talking about the Chiefs, oh man, what are they going to do without their starting tackles this week? That's been Herbert for the majority of the season.
Yeah,
without his starting tackles
and they've rolled through multiple tackles. Now it's Jamari Salyer, college left tackle, who's been all over the offensive line in the NFL, subsequently to the bench, now in at left tackle.
By the way, Jamari Salyer had one awesome rep against Aiden Hutchinson in the college football playoff a couple years ago that some people were like, "This is your number 1 overall pick, Hutch?" Got pancaked by Salyer. Well, yeah, he still is. Still good. I know who did it.
Didn't go number 1, though.
It's true. He's the number 2 overall pick. Anyway, I'm loving this game Monday night, despite the boring nature of the Eagles and the way they play offense. It's just so annoying. And all that said, Jalen Hurts is good. He is a good quarterback. Just stylistically, they've run into these lulls every other year, seemingly.
Yeah.
So here we are. All right, man. Eagles by 2.5. Where are you going to go?
I'm going to go with the Chargers. I'm interested to see how that Eagles defense bounces back from that run performance, because that was a definite red flag. And this is kind of like it was a couple of years ago, where it's they're not in any danger of not making the playoffs.
Collapse watch.
Yeah, but they've had too much of a head start. Dallas is too far behind. The rest of the wild card team, they're too far back. So the Eagles are basically making the playoffs come what may. But remember that year, it was they're definitely making the playoffs. Maybe they'll be able to snap out of this when they get to that game. And they couldn't. They got to that game in the midst of the collapse, and the collapse just continued. That's a possibility now for this Eagles team. I didn't know that it necessarily was previously, but I think off the back of that game, that's on the cards.
I think their defense is better, and that'll keep them in it. I think their defense is better than it was that year. But you're right. It's collapse watch. And the Chargers in this fascinating run of these next 5 weeks are a challenge for this team that I think is very good, but they could be looking at 2 and 3, and
they're also
them stumbling into the playoffs.
They're also a pretty schizophrenic team themselves.
They are.
They've got good wins. They also got stomped by Jacksonville. Who knows?
We're gonna have a little prop bet on Herbert here in a minute too. So I'm gonna take Philly, and Harry's gonna take Philly as well. So the Palazzolos disagree with you, Sam.
Okay.
You know how fast the NFL game days move. One big play and everything changes. That's why live betting on FanDuel is a game changer. With FanDuel, you can bet in real time while the game unfolds. Score just flipped, jump on a new spread or a live money line. That wide receiver's heating up. You can bet the next touchdown scorer or total yards. Think that drive's going to stall in the red zone? Well, you can take a live field goal prop or fade the total. Live player props, team totals, drive results, updated spreads, next play markets. It's all there. It's fast, it's fun, and with FanDuel, Your live bets move as quickly as the game does. So whether you're riding momentum or fading the hype, FanDuel puts you right in the middle of every moment. Visit FanDuel.com/33rd to download the app and bet the NFL live all season long. FanDuel.com/33rd. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinglinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Paid endorsement. Today we're talking Justin Herbert in this game, Monday Night Football. His over-under just 209.5 passing yards against this Eagles passing attack. I do love that battle, though, with Quentin Johnston, Keenan Allen, Ladd McConkey against, the Quinyon Mitchells and Cooper DeJeans of the world. I still think every week that other corner spot opposite Quinyon can be attacked. We'll see if the Chargers can do that. But 209.5, where are you going to go with this one for Herbert?
I feel like this is, artificially suppressed a bit because of Herbert's hand injury, and I think he's going to overcome that. I think he'll go out and pass for more than that.
Well, then the other question is if they run the ball the way the Bears did,
then
do they even need it?
Right.
I wonder if that's a big part of it, too. I don't think they'll run the ball the way the Bears did, though. So I'll take the over as well, 209.5. I think they're going to need some big plays from Justin Herbert, and he'll be chucking it around. It's all over at FanDuel. Join in on the action. All right, man, let's go through the Sunday slate. 8 games in the 1 o'clock window. We're back to the 8 at the 1 o'clock. Indianapolis Colts at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Colts are favored by 1.5 in Jacksonville, where they haven't won since the 80s.
The 80s. Didn't they get one? They had a run of
They
13 straight or something,
did.
and then they got one.
I think they did. So we mentioned before with the Colts, their run, they just lost to Houston last week. They still have to play Houston one more time. They've got 2 against the Jags. So the Colts, who at one point, they're still, it's funny, I think on Monday Night Football, they had this, the Patriots were playing, and it's like, let's take a look at all the teams fighting for the number 1 seed. And they put up the Patriots, they put up the Broncos, and they put up the Colts. And it was like, guys, you got to update the graphic. The Colts are tied for the top of the division. And right now the Jags have the tiebreaker. We're still living in this world where the Colts were in the mix for the number 1 overall seed. And theoretically they are. But now they're back with Jacksonville and Houston. They're battling for their lives in the AFC South.
I mean, they're in that group tied with the Chargers and the Bills in terms of wild cards. And, they've gone from number 1 seed, juggernaut, this is the team that everyone didn't see coming, to, they're still favored to make the playoffs now, but if they lose this game, they're down to a coin flip. If they lose this game, it's down to 55%. Somehow this team that ran out to this incredible early season record, they didn't get over the line yet. They got very close, but if they lose another game and that run, if they got Jacksonville, where they historically struggle to win, then they're on the road in Seattle. Then they have the San Francisco 49ers, who continue to win games. Then Jacksonville again at home, and then the Texans on the road. This is a brutal run-in for the Colts. And I don't know how many wins they need to secure the playoff spot, but they're going to need a couple, and those are all tough games.
It's very similar to this Chargers schedule that I'm talking about, right? No losing records there.
Where is Timo's percentage of, I don't know what actually factors into this, but he's got the percentage playoff chances at given win totals. Indianapolis, if they win 11 games, so they need 3, 98% chance. Here's the thing, though. 10, if they only win 2 of the next 5 games, 2% chance. That's not right. 12, that must be 12. That must be a typo, because 9 wins is 7%.
Yeah. So what do they need if they get to
They
10?
basically need to get to 11 wins, according to this, depending on what that typo actually is.
So they probably need to go 3-2 here with 2 games against the Jags, 1 against the Texans, and then the 2 NFC West, the Seahawks and Niners, a couple 9-win teams.
They need, I think, they basically need to win more than they lose of the next 5 games.
Yeah. And now what have they done the last month? And
meanwhile, they're on a run of 3 losses in 4 games.
3 out of 4, and their 1 win was an overtime win
against Atlanta in Germany, right?
And the 3 losses are against Steelers, Chiefs, and Texans.
Yeah.
All I want to say pretty good AFC teams. We'll see what the Steelers really are, but the last 2 weeks in particular. So that's something to keep an eye on. Plus, you get the broken fibula for Daniel Jones.
The Atlanta game is also the only one that they cleared 30 points in since they beat up on the Titans. And again, the Atlanta game, they needed overtime to get there.
And then if we take a step back, all right, just to break down the Colts here, they've had some impressive wins. Like, they've definitely beaten up on some bad teams.
Yeah, not for a while, though.
They beat the Broncos. There was a leverage play. They beat the Rams. There was an A.D. Mitchell plays, that went the other way. I mean, they lost to the Rams, but there were A.D. Mitchell plays that went against them. They beat the Chargers pretty handily, 38-24. That was one of their more impressive wins, and they've beaten up on some bad teams. So let's see what we have here. Sauce Gardner's hurt for the Colts. On the other side, Jags, I think Trevor Lawrence is coming off his best game. Yeah, it was against the Titans, but I think we're starting to see, I don't want to say cleaner play, because 2 weeks ago he threw 3 picks against Arizona, and they were pretty awful. But that same game had incredible anticipation plays, I think we're seeing a little more confidence and trust from Trevor Lawrence since the Jacoby Myers trade. And Jacoby Myers has been incredibly efficient since they traded for him from the Raiders. And last week was the first week we saw him, Brian Thomas Jr., Parker Washington, at least for a little bit before he left, Brenton Strange at tight end. They might have the right mix of playmakers now to get the most out of Trevor Lawrence down the stretch here.
They're two similar teams in a way. Like, you've got two teams that I think are pretty good on both sides of the ball in most areas, and then the quarterback is a question mark for each one of them. It's a different question mark. Like, Trevor Lawrence is the $55 million a year quarterback, the former number 1 overall pick, the next greatest thing. And Daniel Jones is a guy who was sort of maybe overdrafted, worked out for a bit, was kicked to the curb, and then has been this reclamation project in Indy. But it's kind of the same idea. It's like, which one of these quarterbacks plays the better or cleaner game in this?
The other thing that I said early in the year about this Jags team, remember how turnover dependent they were the first 5 weeks of the season, and that's going to run out. You literally cannot force 3 turnovers per game like they were for the first 4 or 5 weeks. But I said, look, they still haven't had that passing offense, firing yet. And, 2 weeks ago, yeah, there were 3 picks. The week before that, they didn't need the pass game a ton against the Chargers. But I think the last 2 weeks they've shown a little bit more big playability in the pass game. And I would say overall, Trevor Lawrence has underachieved relative to previous baselines. But he's I almost want to spin that too. If he went on a nice little 5-game stretch here, 6-game stretch starting last week, I wouldn't be surprised. I could see Lawrence having a good finish to the season here. And then the Jags are really dangerous if he plays at a level that I always go back to, the end of the 2022 season, beginning of 2023. He's had these stretches of play. Was last week the beginning of that? I'm looking for patterns here, Sam. Looking for patterns. Was last week against Tennessee coinciding with Jacoby Myers coming in here? Is that going to be
I'm done
the
with
trigger?
We've been literally since the beginning of year 2 with Trevor Lawrence. It's been
looking for patterns.
Is he turned the corner? Has Trevor Lawrence, has the switch gone on?
Year 5 has Trevor Lawrence turned the corner. Yeah. We said the same thing about Daniel Jones, and I thought he played all right last week. I still don't completely trust him, right? He had stretches of 6 fumbles in 2 games.
Well, my question
I know
for
he's
him,
got the injury.
That's a big thing, I think. My question for him is, how much is that affecting everything?
It's a fair question.
I don't know. I've never broken a fibula. I don't know how much that's going to affect you. Again, I've only seen one small clip of him in practice looking injured, but he looked very encumbered with that. And if that's the default pain level that he's dealing with right now, that has to affect everything. Maybe not oh no, I can't, but it just, if your central nervous system is dealing with that kind of constant distraction while you're trying to focus on throwing a ball, 40 yards downfield to an intended target, can't be helping.
At their best, though, this Colts offense, Josh Downs is banged up. They don't know if he's going to be able to go. But at their best, having Alec Pierce down the field, Michael Pittman, Tyler Warren work in the middle of the field and catching a wide. By the way, I think they tried the tight end screen the first play last week, and the Texans were all over it. And that's if that's not working, trouble. If you can't get the tight end screen game going. Once a week, it's supposed to work for 15 for Tyler Warren. But they've got the pass catchers. They got Jonathan Taylor able to run the ball out of the backfield. I think the offensive line has had more issues these last couple weeks than they had previously. And so it's going to be a fun matchup here.
Yeah, it will be. I think it's a good matchup. I think they're both pretty good teams, and the Colts need to stop the rot. I mean, they're starting to run out of margin for error, having looked so comfortable before.
All right, where do you want to go with this one?
I'm going to go with the Jags. I think the Colts wobble is very real.
And again, this is in Jacksonville. The Colts have struggled winning there historically. Not so much in the Dome, but in Jacksonville. So, yeah, I'll take the Jags as underdogs here as well, as will Harry. All right, so that's a battle. So that's just to miss this point. AFC South on the line, right? They're both 8-4. They're both tied for first. Winner is in full control of the AFC South, at least for one more week. Now we have an AFC North battle for first place as well, happening at Sunday at 1. We got some massive games this weekend. Pittsburgh Steelers at the Baltimore Ravens, a couple 6-6 teams. Ravens favored by 5.5 here, over under 43.5. This is the game we've been talking about for probably 2 months, where we said the Steelers started out hot, the Ravens started out 1-5. Let's see what happens on December 7th when they play. Let's see if the Ravens, with that easy schedule, if they can get back.
December 7th.
And here we are.
Like a WWF promo.
December 7th, in your house, 52, Ravens, Steelers. Here we go. Anyway, I want to say two teams trending in a different directions, but, man, Baltimore's coming off a rough loss against Cincinnati. So now it's like two teams. Steelers are definitely stumbling, but the Ravens stumbled on Thanksgiving night.
Yeah, I mean, well, two teams that are, I mean, the Steelers are definitely in trouble. The Ravens went on this run of winning games and getting themselves off the ridiculous, what are they, 1-4 record? 1-5. Then they won 5 straight, but the toughest team that they faced in that stretch was Chicago. And they weren't, like, this was Chicago earlier in the season before they were really on their run. Then it's Miami, Minnesota, Cleveland, New York Jets. Like, none of those teams have a quarterback. And then the first team they played with a quarterback, Joe Burrow, went out there and fairly conclusively kicked their ass during Thanksgiving. This is a big game for them. Like, this is the whole point of their season. They were going to get back to a pretty useful-looking record just based off the teams that they were going to play. Plus, the Steelers were never likely to run and hide in that division and, rack up 12 wins, whatever. So it was always going to come back to them. And then the games against Pittsburgh were likely to determine the division. And then, oh, by the way, Cincinnati theoretically is still mathematically alive in this division and apparently capable of beating both Pittsburgh and Baltimore.
Yeah, a couple 6-6 teams here, Sam. Baltimore does not feel as strong, right? They don't.
I mean, they're not.
But Pittsburgh doesn't. I mean, there are a couple Pittsburgh numbers here. Ben Fennell, NFL. Steelers haven't completed a downfield pass, this was 2 days ago, in 36 days. So 5 straight games. This includes a Mason Rudolph start.
Right.
So he's in there as well. But Aaron Rodgers mostly. 0 for 13 with 3 interceptions in their last 5 games on 20-plus yard throws. The other stat that I saw the other day, which I believe came from Ben Solak via John Lendyard, and I just retweeted it. Mm-hmm. Did you see this one?
No.
Aaron Rodgers, the percentage of his yards that have come after the catch is the second most. Let's see. Here we go. 66%, 66.4% of Rodgers' passing yards have come after the catch. Second only to 2011 A.J. Feely in the last 15 years. That's 713 quarterback seasons. 66.4% of Rodgers' passing yards coming after the catch. So that's 712 out of 713, or 2 out of 713, if you want to say, like, second most yards after the catch. And when I was joking earlier in the season, the Steelers were winning games, and I said they're building this entire offense out of checkdowns to Jaylen Warren and red zone fades to Darnell Washington and DK Metcalf. And for a few weeks, it was working, right? They had when they create turnovers and they create short fields, and they're already in the red zone, they did a pretty nice job in the red zone early on. You got Darnell Washington, you've got DK Metcalf. You had checkdowns to Jaylen Warren where he was turning passes into 50 and 60 yarders. You had a couple weeks ago where Rodgers had 90% of his yards came after the catch in one of their games where the Bengals game where Darnell Washington was just, going Derrick Henry on everybody before Rodgers got hurt. That's just not sustainable. Like, that's just not sustainable offense. Now, they did add Adam Thielen. We did joke about that. The tweet the other day that somebody somewhat predicted that a 2018 Pro Bowler was on the way to help the Steelers. No idea if he's activated in time for this, but we spent a little bit of time on Pittsburgh yesterday fixing them, giving them some roadside assistance, and saying, look, if you can get Thielen in there to be the high-volume underneath receiver, free up DK Metcalf to make some plays down the field, like, they're still capable of making those plays, but they need something from this offense.
Yeah, they do. I mean, this is, if there is any juice left in the Aaron Rodgers, Mike Tomlin motivational aura, like this Rodgers being a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play, Mike Tomlin being a great coach, a motivator of people, this is the week it needs to show up. I mean, both those guys put it out there fairly clearly coming off the back of last week. Things need to change. We need to get together. We need to do it now. And they do. Like, this is the team that they need. Doesn't really matter what else happens outside of this. This is the team they need to show up against. And they need to show up this second. If they can't do it, I mean, it doesn't even matter what the rest of their season looks like. I think they're in trouble at that point. If they can do it, this is the type of game, like, this is how he gets to 9 wins every year, right? It's this type of game.
The other stat that really stood out to me about Rodgers and where he is, I mean, even if you just take a step back, and you and I have both said, look, I think physically he's not the same movement skills-wise. Like, physically he's not the same as far as movement goes. Arm velocity and all that, it looks the same. I do think there's an element of the accuracy's a little off throwing the ball down the field, and that could just be age or whatever. But the last 3 years for Aaron Rodgers too, if you want to use ESPN's QBR, I think there's use in that. It's not my favorite stat overall, but it does factor in. It factors in a ton of air yards, sacks, EPA. He is in the 40s in ESPN's QBR, which is like bottom 5 in the league, bottom 8 in the league. And he was in the 40s back in 2022 with the Packers. So his last season with the Packers, he was at 41. Last year with the Jets, 44. And this year with the Steelers, 40 ESPN QBR. So again, you've got PFF grade, which factors in certain things that QBR doesn't focus on. And QBR has its strengths and weaknesses. And just using EPA has its strengths and weaknesses. But I would say the PFF grade is better at isolating the quarterback.
Yeah.
But all these other grades are probably or these other numbers are showing some of the stuff that maybe PFF doesn't capture, but it's more holistic offensive type of stuff. And it's not as simple as, well, the whole offense is letting him down.
And it's the worst PFF grade of his career. I mean, this is
the
worst.
In the 60s.
Like, he's playing significantly worse than he was playing last year with the Jets when people thought he was the problem, right?
Right.
Like, this is like he's averaging the same 6.7 yards per attempt, but his PFF grade is a lot worse than it was last year. So if Rodgers was playing the way he was playing last year, the Steelers might be okay, but he's not. And he said this, look, something needs to change. In fact, everything needs to change, including my play. Like, I've got to play better. And he's right. Like, I'm curious to see if this husk of, great all-time greats in the NFL from a while ago can pull it together for a game where they know everything's on the line.
Yeah. I mean, so then if you really zoom out a little bit, like, the last time Aaron Rodgers has played high-end football was 2020 and 21, those 2 MVP caliber seasons with Matt LaFleur, and then it just hasn't been the same since. So my point in all this, it's like it's going to be tough to salvage things, and this is why I think the touchdown to interception ratio is so overrated. Like, oh, he's 28-11 last year, he's 19-7. It's not that bad, but yeah, they're handed all these plays in the red zone, and that's why it's not an efficient offense right now for Pittsburgh. No. But they're going up against a Ravens defense, which is, as you said, when they go up against bad quarterbacks, they've had success. They're still not great on that side of the ball. They don't rush the passer all that well. And then you have the matchup on the other side where historically Lamar Jackson had issues against Pittsburgh versus other teams. But he solved some of those down the stretch last year. Historically, he's 3-4, passer rating of 79 against Pittsburgh, but his last 2 games last year, late in the regular season in the playoffs, they dominated. And so this Pittsburgh defense, do you trust them at this point? Well, they've got their issues. Ravens offense, they're not what they have been. It's like pillow fight on both sides of the ball. Like they're just not neither team where they were or were expected to be. So, but it's still a battle for first place here.
Yeah.
I'm just rambling about stuff.
Fair enough. I mean, I think it's going to be a fun game. Like this division matchups are always good, even though the division isn't actually anywhere near as good as people thought it would be this year. The division matchups themselves are always good and unpredictable, as we saw when Joe Flacco took down the Steelers. This is the first game, though, where like the division's kind of on the line.
I want to make a pick, but I just want to rehash what happened last year. The Ravens, Lamar's in the middle of the season where he's probably the best statistical season of his career last year, and his worst game was against Pittsburgh early in the year. And he had not played them a ton in recent years because of injury. So in week 11 in Pittsburgh, 16 of 33 for 207. He was in the middle of this incredible stretch and has his worst game of the season. And then they play again in week 16, Saturday game. Will they solve it? He did. He was great then, and then great in the wild card game against Pittsburgh. So the last two times we've seen Lamar Jackson against the Steelers defense, he's been outstanding. By far his two best games against the Steelers. Prior to that, you could say whatever Mike Tomlin had, like they got something on Lamar Jackson. They are the one team that has started to slow him down. Not really the one team, because I think Kansas City's done a nice job and what have you. But the last two games, Lamar seemingly solved the Steelers. Will that continue? But Lamar Jackson's also in this awful stretch right now where he hasn't thrown a touchdown in 3 games, doesn't look the same running the ball. So we've got to figure out what they're capable of here. Mm-hmm. Pittsburgh also just gave up 1 million yards on the ground. Can they get Derrick Henry going?
Yeah, and you've got that whole dynamic of their pass rush, which should be more formidable than it's been. How much is that letting down the secondary and the back end? Just the whole concept of the Steelers' defense being pretty easy to diagnose and attack.
All right, man. Baltimore by 5.5 in Baltimore this weekend.
I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. I'm going to buy into the Tomlin Black Magic. I believe that this is how he gets the 9 wins every year. This is the game. They haven't lost more than 2 in a row at any point this season. If they do this, that's 3 in a row.
Right when they're at their lowest is when he comes. Just like the Colts game a couple weeks ago.
As soon as you write them off, that's when he wins a game that he shouldn't win, and that's how they get the 9 wins every year.
This is a Tomlin game. It's a Tomlin game. Taking the Steelers. You giving Tomlin 5.5? Absolutely not. In Baltimore, he once owned Lamar Jackson. He lost him, but he once dominated Lamar Jackson.
In Baltimore, coming off 2 straight losses. Of course, Tomlin's winning this game.
Harry's going to take Baltimore here. Cincinnati Bengals at the Buffalo Bills. Bills favored by 5.5 as well. This looked like a great slate at the beginning of the season. Cincinnati, they're 4-8, but trending in the right direction after one game.
After a game, yeah.
Yes. Buffalo 8-4. Cincinnati playing for their playoff lives. They're just like last year. Pretty much have to win out. They'll be 2 games back at best because Pittsburgh's facing Baltimore, but they do get to play the Ravens one more time, and so it's not all over yet for the Cincinnati Bengals.
It's not. They're in the category of like mathematically alive, but not really. I need to go and work the playoff predictor machine thing again and figure out just how hard it is to get the Bengals into the playoffs, because I kind of feel that even though they're 4-8, it's still more likely than all the numbers give it credit for. Like currently NFL.com has them with a 3% chance of making the playoffs. I know at one point before last week's game, PFF had it at under 1%. If they win this game, they go up to 8% according to the NFL, and if they lose, they're at 1% again. I still feel like if they won this game, I feel like that's much more likely than 8%.
So they probably are rooting for the Ravens to win against the Steelers just because they play the Ravens again and they control.
That's the thing. So they've got a game against Baltimore.
They've
got a game against Baltimore. Baltimore and Pittsburgh play each other, multiple times down the stretch. So I haven't worked out.
Maybe they're rooting for a split.
That's the thing. I haven't worked out what's better for them, one team sweeping that or a split. But like I feel like this is less crazy than it seems mathematically. But then I haven't actually, run it out.
Either way, they need to win.
Yes.
I thought the defense looked for Cincinnati. They've looked a little bit better these last couple weeks. They gave New England a pretty good game, had a pick 6 in there, and they did a nice job against Baltimore. Now, Baltimore, depends on how you view this, right? were those unforced errors by the Ravens. A couple of them, right? Isaiah Likely 45-yard touchdown turns into a 44-yard gain with a touchback, fumble at the goal line, and Lamar Jackson just throws the ball into the turf for a fumble. But I think Cincinnati's done a little bit better attacking with the blitz these last couple weeks, creating a little bit more pressure. One of the worst pressure teams in the league for most of the season, and they had been rushing 4. These last couple weeks, blitz has been getting home a little more effective, stunting a little bit more. They're going to need that with Trey Hendrickson, still out. They're just getting a little bit more production from Joseph Asai, Miles Murphy.
Yeah.
And they're going to need something against Buffalo here.
PFF, by the way, already has them at 8%, so they have a more likely chance of making the playoffs than NFL does. Timo's numbers in terms of win numbers, if they get to 9, so if they win out, he has them at 73%. So basically, he thinks...
If they get to 9?
Yeah, if they win out, he thinks there's a 73%.
9 and 8.
But here's the thing. This is why I don't think it's as crazy as the low numbers at the moment. Even with 8 wins, even if they lose one of the next 5, Timo has a 20% chance that the Bengals are making the playoffs because Pittsburgh and Baltimore are playing. Because the division is still attainable even with 8 wins. This is like last year when they needed a million things to break their way, and almost all of them did. A million less one
this whole
broke
thing
their
is,
way.
Because we're talking, if you rewind the show this last hour and a half, we're talking about a 6-6 Chiefs team that has all of their playoff odds on the line.
But they have no pathway to the division.
That's what. Okay.
That's the difference.
They're battling for the wild card. And the Colts.
The Bengals have no shot of making the playoffs through the wild card. Their shot of making the playoffs is through the division win.
In the Colts, because they've got a lot of competition for the top of the division, if they start losing, they could fall completely out of the wild card mix.
Right.
But the Bengals have a division opportunity because, the leaders are 6-6.
That's the thing.
What if a tie? What are they rooting for? A tie for Steelers-Ravens? Is that
Probably,
better?
yeah.
2 ties for Steelers-Ravens is what
split the series with 2 ties.
Yeah, I think they'd probably need a split from those teams. So look, Burrow came back. I thought the offense was.
My point being, this has to be the most mathematically alive 4-8 team in history.
Let me go back and check out my '96 Jags. 3-7. They were 3-7. Then 3-7. Then they won out.
And then 4-7. So that's better.
That is better. Yeah, it's the best 4. Are the Bengals the best 4-8 team in history?
I don't even think they're the best 4. I'm just saying I think they're the most alive playoff team that's been 4-8 ever.
Yeah. Bills coming off their win against the Steelers where they ran the ball like crazy. You would think on paper they could have similar success. The Bengals' potential run here is going to come down to their defense playing better. And again, I thought they showed elements of it against New England, elements of it against Baltimore. Can they do it against Buffalo?
Yeah.
And can they tackle, right? Buffalo's the type of team that's going to make you tackle. Either, James Cook in the backs or the receivers in space. Can the Bengals actually tackle as one of the worst tackling teams in the NFL?
Yeah, huge thing. Because Pittsburgh were saying this after the Buffalo wasn't doing anything particularly creative with the run game. They were just running the same play over and over again, and Pittsburgh were blowing gaps and blowing contain, and James Cook was just cutting it back into acres of space and running for huge gains. Basic gap discipline stops that happening relative to last week. Can the Bengals, number one, do that, just keep everybody in the right gap? And then number 2, can they make one-on-one tackles against James Cook, who's a really good running back?
The other dynamic here, which I think is interesting, Joe Burrow's Bengals have done a really nice job against the best teams in the AFC.
Yeah.
They've given Kansas City all they can handle, including beating them in the playoffs and beating them in the regular season multiple times. And they beat Buffalo in the playoffs a couple of years ago. They beat Buffalo in Cincinnati a couple of years ago. They've done a nice job. It's actually interesting because Lamar and the Ravens struggle against Kansas City. Struggle against they beat Buffalo pretty bad last year, but they lost to them in the playoffs before. Yeah. But Burrow's Bengals have given the 2 best teams in the AFC during their time, or 3 best teams really, the Ravens. They've given them some trouble. And can they keep this up? Because it doesn't feel like the same Bengals team that it even was last year, because the defense was so awful and they blew the Jets and Bears games. But if they had just like won those games, it would feel like, man, like think about what that would be like.
Yeah, I mean,
if they were sitting here at 6-6, tied with the Steelers and Ravens for the top of the division. Like they're that close.
Yeah.
Just like last year, they were this close to winning 12 games.
And it might be the one stupid game that they had, like it was a year ago, where they lost to a terrible Patriots team in Week 1 in the one game where their offense didn't fire. Like it ends up being the dumbest loss on their record that cost them the playoff spot. This year, it may end up being the dumb loss to the Jets that cost the Bengals a playoff spot. Like you might be able to swap that one game in their schedule when we get to the end of the year, and that flipped them from winning the division or not. But I do think Joe Flacco played remarkably well for a few games and should have been good enough for this team to stay like legitimately alive in time for Joe Burrow to come back. But clearly you saw last week, it is different when Burrow's back there. I mean, he is an elite caliber quarterback. He's capable of playing his best football on the biggest stages, like when they need him the most, which not every elite quarterback is capable of doing. You know, Burrow played amazingly well in the Super Bowl, and it took Aaron Donald going nuts at the end of the game to take that away from him. I mean, if it doesn't take an awful lot in his career to bounce the other way for us to be talking about Burrow already as an entrenched, great quarterback with, a Super Bowl win and some more playoff success under his belt, this is a team that can go toe-to-toe with Josh Allen and the Bills and knock them over, even though they have a garbage defense and there's all kinds of problems with this team.
The NFL article won't even give Bengals on the bubble numbers here. There they are. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you just have to scroll down.
Oh, yeah, 4% chance if they win.
They're behind the Dolphins.
4% chance if they win. 2%, it goes up to 4 if they win.
Like, this is how ridiculous their situation is. I think the Dolphins have been dead for weeks, and yet they're ahead in record terms than the Bengals, who I think actually still have a live chance at this.
I think the Bills are still good. Just like I will oversimplify the Chiefs' world of they're either not getting some of the one-off plays bouncing their way this year, and they're 6-6. I think the Bills are similar. Did they get beat up pretty bad by the Dolphins a couple weeks ago? Definitely. But I still think the Bills, when they don't have the turnovers, are right there. And the Texans took it to them a couple weeks ago. They bounced back nicely, I thought, against Pittsburgh. I think the Bills are still more than capable. And the same way they had 3 games into the season, we had takes that Josh Allen's the greatest stretch of quarterback play we've ever seen. This is the best team in the NFL, and that flips, within a month.
Flips with the New England game, the second.
With the New England
people
game.
Said it.
They're capable of being that team down the stretch here.
Yeah.
In December.
I mean, they are. I mean, even they destroyed Carolina. They beat Kansas City. Then you lose to Miami. It's like, what the hell happened there? But then they beat Tampa Bay fairly comfortably. Then you lose to Houston with that defense absolutely suffocating people the way it is. And then a very comfortable win against Pittsburgh. I mean, if you just focus on the games they win, they look like one of the best teams in the NFL. Like, they win all of their games with authority or with like an impressive style points, right? Even beating Kansas City the way they did, it's like that's impressive. When they win, it looks great. The problems occur when they don't win, and those range from, all right, I understand that's Houston's defense, they're really, really good, to how do you do that against Miami? What the hell is that?
And they have the same injuries that they seem to have every year.
Yeah.
But, none of those guys are necessarily out for the season. We'll see what they get coming back. They might get both tackles back this week. Spencer Brown, Deion Dawkins, both limited yesterday. Dalton Kincaid, limited. We'll see what happens as far as injuries for Buffalo.
Where are they with their tackles? Because obviously both those guys were missing last week. That was supposed to be the reason they were
both limited.
They were going to get destroyed by Pittsburgh, and that didn't happen.
Both limited yesterday.
Yeah.
Dawkins coming off a concussion. I think if you're limited on a Wednesday, then
you're probably
trending in the right direction. The shoulder for Spencer Brown, he could barely move 2 weeks ago against Houston, so we'll see. Anyway, Buffalo by 5.5. Is that too much? Where are you going to go with this one?
I'm giving Cincinnati a week of this witchcraft. So I'm going to go with the Bengals covering this, if not winning the game outright, and really causing chaos in this division.
Did we get a weather report on this too?
No.
Got to get a weather. Remember they played in the snow a couple of years ago. I'll take Cincinnati within 5.5, as will Harry. I think we'll see a good one. We've got some great games in the 1 o'clock window here.
I have to go away. Sunday p.m. snow showers.
Yeah, 1 o'clock. Can we move this to prime time? Move it to prime time.
Yeah, it doesn't
Want snow.
specify when in the PM.
Need a snow game.
But it's snow shower Saturday, PM snow shower Sunday. So, cold and potentially some light snow.
All right, we'll go quicker through the last 7. You ready?
Sure.
Seattle Seahawks at the Atlanta Falcons. Seahawks favored by 7. It's Sunday at 1, over under 44.5. 9-3 Seahawks battling the 4-8 Falcons.
Oh, God. Seattle's defense against Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel like it will go well for Atlanta.
Seattle's defense, number 1 in EPA per play against the run. And so normally you would say, all right, we've got Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier. We're going to protect Cousins.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'd like to.
Cousins, and look, Cousins thrown the ball pretty well these last couple of weeks. The velocity's not there still. At least they're in the dome. He throws with enough anticipation. He's always had enough arm to just get it there. But the way the Seahawks compress passing lanes, ball hawks in the secondary, their pass rush, I think it's going to be quite a challenge for Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Atlanta's offense is going to struggle to get almost anything going in this game. That's going to be rough. And then the question becomes, which version of the sort of schizophrenic Atlanta defense are you going to get? Can they cause chaos for Sam Darnold, or do they just get wrecked?
See, I think they can. So that's going to be the challenge.
Well,
now, I thought they could against Carolina, but
yeah, this is the problem. Is that if they've shown they can against some. I mean, they put Josh Allen in absolute hell. They did it to J.J. McCarthy as well. That's less impressive the further into the season you get. But they've caused chaos for certain teams, and then they get games where they don't. You're like, what changes?
Lost in the mix last week of Max Brosmer's 4 interceptions. Sam Darnold struggled a little bit against that Vikings defense. They did a great job disguising pressures and doing a lot of the stuff that Atlanta does. Maybe not at the extreme.
I think people
Brian Flores, but
people it's inevitable given the score. 26-0. The Vikings are not going to get credit for having done anything in that game. But the defensive performance that Minnesota had in that game was really, really good, and it gets completely lost in the analysis because their offense was awful, and so they lost the game handily. But Flores and that Vikings defense did a phenomenal job against the Seahawks.
Yeah, and they, JSN didn't get. I mean, we were 2 weeks ago. We spent
didn't catch
all this
the ball
time
until the third quarter.
Yeah, we spent all this time talking about how historic efficiency from JSN. And again, there's 2 ways of that, credit to that, and we spent a lot of time giving proper credit and putting perspective in just how unbelievable of a season JSN had been having. At the same time, how the heck do you keep that up week after week? It's tough. So I'll be interested to see how much they just feed him the ball early on as well, because if they get him isolated on the Falcons' corners, I mean, no one's been able to cover him really this year if you get those one-on-ones. So yeah, I think that side of the ball.
They took away the targets, which is as impressive as anything else. Remember the sort of weird 40s, 50s stats that JSN have been working on, not just, on pace for 2,000 yards, but also basically getting half of the team's yardage and targets and all those kinds of things. I mean, he had 4 targets in the game, which is nothing. I mean,
we in our recap call this week, we have a 33rd team has access to a slew of former coaches and just really smart football people, and we had a nice little breakdown on Monday of what Flores was doing to Sam Darnold in the Seattle offense and the number of times that he was showing a zero blitz look and then played something completely different. This isn't new for Flores, but last week in particular, dropping into cover 1, dropping into fire zone, dropping into cover 2, dropping into every different type of coverage from the same look, and you just saw just enough hesitation from Darnold in that offense that he couldn't get the ball out on time, led to sacks, led to blocking scheme mishaps. And we've said the Rams do that really well, right? And the Rams have had their success against Darnold, forced the 4 interceptions a few weeks back. And the Falcons' defense this year, it's a Raheem Morris defense, came from the Rams, right? It's they do a good job of that, especially with Divine Diablo back. Once he's back, changes a lot for that defense. Jalen Walker, James Pierce, those young pass rushers doing a pretty nice job these last few weeks. So all that said, I think Atlanta, as you said, yes, they're a little schizophrenic and inconsistent. They're more than capable of at least slowing down this Seahawks passing attack.
Yeah, and they do when they're playing well, like the good version of the Falcons defense. It does some of the same stuff that Flores does. It is creative. It is difficult to diagnose in terms of who's rushing, where they're rushing from, all those kinds of things. I think you're starting to see a pattern with Darnold, which is, I mean, look, this is not something every team can replicate because it requires a certain, set of abilities and players. But teams that can either bring, I mean, any team that can bring a ridiculous front four is generally a cheat code. So this is not specific
against
to Darnold.
everybody. Yeah.
Right. But if you have a incredibly potent front four, or you have a defense that can bring enough pass rush with a ton of disguise behind it, I think you can at least make Sam Darnold hesitate long enough and potentially make a couple of bad mistakes in a game, and you get the worst version of Sam Darnold. The Vikings, did that to a degree. Nobody noticed because their offense was literally the worst offense you're going to see. The Rams have done it to them. Like, those are the types of teams. The Falcons at least have the potential to do that. Now, they're way more inconsistent than these other teams. But, like, if they show up and have the same performance they did against Buffalo, Darnold's going to have problems.
Make a mental note that I'm about to do this. Special teams. We talk special teams for 30 seconds here. According to our friends over at True Media, the Seahawks have added the second most special teams EPA per play, or just EPA total, in the league. They're number 2. The Falcons are 4th worst. Now, maybe we should have known. Last week, Jets-Falcons, the Jets are number 3 in the NFL. Again, Falcons are among the worst. Now, last week skewed some of that, right? Long kickoff return and fumble on a kickoff, but those are some of the
I want to know how
plays.
much. Yeah, I want to know how much those move.
Yeah.
Total EPA on special teams. I feel like special teams is such a small sample size that the variance for any big play in any direction has got to be massive.
But in this case, it's something to keep an eye on. Where Seattle has done a nice job there. Atlanta just playing bad football. They're playing well enough to lose every single week, calibrated to lose by a score, even against the Jets.
Which is not ideal.
Not ideal at all. So. Seattle by 7, though. Where are you going to go?
I am going to go with Seattle to win and cover that, even on the road.
Oh, I hate this because, again, a lot of my analysis thinks Atlanta's really going to struggle offensively against this team.
Yep.
But I think their defense has a chance to keep it close. God, I hate this. No, I'm taking Seattle. By 7 on the road? Yeah, I'll still take Seattle. All right, let's go Tennessee Titans at the Cleveland Browns. Browns favored by 3.5. We've got number 1 pick implications here, or at least top 10 pick implications, even though they're a couple games apart. And it's Cam Ward versus Shedeur Sanders. A battle of the top 2 picks in the draft? Yeah, it didn't work out that way. But the who we thought could have been the top 2 picks in the draft.
Mel Kiper's top 2 picks of the draft.
True. Just a battle of a 1st and 5th rounder here.
Yeah, and
Number
his
1
would have
overall
been
pick in a 5th
his
round.
would have been Shedeur then Cam. That's why he was so mad.
Did he have Shedeur over Cam?
I think so. I think that's what. I think Skip was saying that in that ridiculous show that we were talking about the other day.
Nice. Off air.
Yeah.
Over under is 33.5.
Mm-hmm.
Discuss.
Shedeur starts again. Titans defense can cause some problems, but this is a much easier task, I think, than it was last week in the rough conditions. That's assuming it's not going to be rough conditions this week.
I'm looking.
Yeah, weather report. The Browns defense, I think, will keep this a very low-scoring game. So Shedeur's bar for success, I think, is going to be pretty low in that if he gets anything going, they're going to have a good shot at winning the game.
Sunday, December 7th.
Yeah.
Snow flurries and snow showers.
Flurries. What about the wind?
Temps nearly steady in the mid-30s.
Okay.
Winds 10 to 15. 40% chance of snow.
Nice.
Accumulations, though, less than an inch.
No.
So it could have a winter wonderland look, but maybe not the accumulation effect.
A light dusting.
A light dusting.
Yeah.
Should be fun, though.
You've got to have Myles Garrett, record watch, sack watch.
And we highlighted this game months ago, Sam, because the Tennessee Titans, one of their big free agent additions was Dan Moore at left tackle. Dan Moore thought he was running away from Myles.
He was free.
He thought
Myles Garrett,
the guy who would wreck all of his production numbers every single year, Myles Garrett, 2 times per year, would just dominate Dan Moore, crush all of his numbers. But not this week. can't hide. Where's Dan Morris? And he's having the same okay season. Started out slow, a little up and down. Okay season. This is that game where he throws out like the 8 pass blocking grade against Myles Garrett.
Yeah. No, this is the game. Having said that, he doesn't tend to give up many sacks against Myles Garrett somehow.
No.
I don't know. I don't think that's actually a thing. I think that's just luck. Like I don't think somehow Myles.
Well, the Steelers, it's the same thing, right? Garrett doesn't get a ton of sacks against the Steelers because they get the ball out very quickly.
What I'm saying is I don't think that's a Dan Moore quality as necessarily that somehow, despite getting wrecked to the tune of like an 8 PFF pass blocking grade every time he plays Myles Garrett, he doesn't actually give up sacks. I think that's other elements. I don't think that's a Dan Moore controlled variable that we're dealing with here.
I mean, you know me, sacks allowed by an offensive lineman are never controlled by him because of not just the quarterback
not
factor.
Never, but definitely not often.
It's like it's just right up there with the running backs in their rushing yards. It
is. But this is this is the type of game, Cam Ward, bad offensive tackles, Myles Garrett. This is the type of game where you could add 3 and get right in on the record.
The 1-11 Titans sitting with the number 1 overall pick right now. Browns at 3-9. Again, picking in the top 10, have 2 picks in the first round. So there are draft implications here. I think if you're a Titans fan, 2 weeks ago, impressive job by Cam Ward against the Seahawks defense. Last week, awful. The whole offense was terrible against the Jags. See what happens this week against a really difficult Browns defense. I'll say this about Cam Ward. What a stretch. I mean, he's had to play the Texans. I mean, he's had to play some really, really tough defenses. And it just doesn't get any easier going against the Browns in their pass rush. Now, the Browns are missing Malik Collins, who's out for the season. He's had a great year at defensive tackle. Still have Mason Graham, still have others up front, but that is a big loss for Cleveland's defense that has been really outstanding up front.
It is, and it puts some pressure and some added responsibility on Mason Graham, their first round draft pick this year, a guy that was supposed to be, Malik Collins is having the season that Mason Graham was supposed to have, really. Like when you think about it, Mason Graham was supposed to be one of these guys that really hit the ground running, was a dominant force, a potential blue chip player from this draft. And yet Malik Collins is the guy out there that's actually been crushing the PFF pass rushing grade. That's the guy that's almost got double-digit sacks. Mason Graham hasn't been bad, but he's been relatively anonymous compared with Collins. Now he needs to step up and take some of that slack and be more of an impact player.
You did mention Garrett, though, and where's Cam? I'm looking at last year. Where's Cam Ward's pressure to sack rate? Can't be that good.
It is not that
worst
good.
in the league.
It is 27%.
27%. I think, the chat suggests that Garrett could have a 4-sack game. I wouldn't doubt it.
Yep. He could get pretty close to the sack record in this game.
And then, look, if I had to sum up Cam Ward's season, I would say flashes of the special plays, started to use his legs a little bit, which I think can be an added weapon, and I think that's going to be a key for his development in the coming years. There's just not enough, not even necessarily quick game, but just in rhythm, efficient throws from Cam Ward. Not enough of those. Now, that could be a receiver issue, that could be a scheme issue, it could be a playing style issue. That needs to get better. Like, if there's something I want to see these last few weeks, it's that from Cam Ward. Shedeur Sanders so far, it's like no strong takes either way, other than there's been more explosives than what they had with Dylan Gabriel and Joe Flacco. So I think there's been this some aggressiveness to Shedeur's game that has helped. He's been better at the sack avoidance since that 4 for 16 first game. He's been better at maneuvering the pocket and creating a little bit outside of structure. But it's still not a great offense, like pass game. It's not a highly efficient pass game. So almost the same thing. Like, I want to see more in rhythm, on-time throws from Shedeur Sanders to go with the fact that he's doing a nice job avoiding the bad negatives. See if they could do either of those this week.
They showed, he needs to stay out of ugly down and distance situations. Like, that was where he got into trouble all the time last week. Almost all of I think he got sacked, 3 times? At least 2 of them were like third and 15, fourth and a mile or whatever. Like, he needs to stay out of those down and distance spots. And that, again, that's not unique to Shedeur Sanders. That's a really tough spot for a young quarterback to be in because they know they have a crazy distance they got to pick up. That takes time, holding on to the ball for a long. It's just inviting problems. So the Browns need to do collectively a better job of keeping him out of those spots.
All right, man. It is Cleveland by 3.5 here. Where are you going to go with this one?
I'm going to go with the Browns, keeping it closer than that.
Yeah, you're winning by 4.
Sorry, yeah, winning by more than that.
Yeah, I'll take the Browns as well, winning by the 3.5. All right, quick break to talk about our friends over at Root Insurance. Root Insurance believes that good drivers deserve better rates, so they've created a new kind of car insurance that rewards good drivers in an easy-to-use app. Traditional car insurance companies focus on demographics like age, zip code, occupation, and credit score to price your coverage. When Root offers a rate, your behavior behind the wheel gets more weight than any other single factor. They don't use occupation or education level to negatively affect your rate. While you drive, Root gathers and analyzes data from your smartphone sensors, and after a few weeks, you'll get a car insurance quote based primarily on your driving. Save up to 44% off your initial Root quote after you take the test drive. If you need a tow truck, jump start, or you lock your keys in the car, Root will cover the help you need to get back on the road when you opt into roadside assistance. The Root app makes it easy to edit your coverage, update your policy, or file a claim in just 3 minutes. You can get started today at Root.com. Washington Commanders at the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings favored by 1.5 right now. You have a potential return for Jaden Daniels, right?
Yeah.
Potential return. J.J. McCarthy should be back from his concussion, over under 42.5. We had 3-9 Commanders and the 4-8 Minnesota Vikings.
J.J. McCarthy being favored in a football game based off what we've seen so far is pretty wild.
I mean, it's not as bad as the production's bad, as I said. I think both, if you look at PFF grade versus EPA, I think Kev Cole or someone else has, I think it's Ben Baldwin's adjusted EPA, which, factors in drops and various things. He's got the biggest EPA adjustment. So just 2 weeks ago, you said, look, second worst EPA per play behind Jamarcus Russell. That's it. It's the only guy that he's ahead of, actually, is what I should say.
Yes.
Second worst. But it's not that bad. If you use adjusted EPA, it's just bad. It's not historically bad. It's just bad.
Yeah, look, I mean, a sneaky thing about this is I think J.J. McCarthy's got the worst drop rate in the NFL. I think drop rate is not completely independent from the quarterback. It's, people use it that way.
14%.
Yeah.
3% higher than number 2, which is Trevor Lawrence.
It's huge. People talk about it all the time. It's just this is strictly a receiver data point. It's got nothing to do with the quarterback whatsoever. That's not true. It is at least partially affected by a quarterback and his accuracy and when the ball is coming and where it's going to, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'm saying is J.J. McCarthy is at least contributing to that number. But I think it's definitely true to say that whether it's McCarthy, Brosmer, whoever's been out there at quarterback, this receiving core for the Vikings that's supposed to be a real positive for this team has not been helping them a lot. And the drop rate, I think, is indicative of that. Like, McCarthy has thrown a bunch of passes that should have been caught for decent plays this season, and the Vikings have not come up with those. And I understand that, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and the rest of them may be getting frustrated and pissed off by this, lack of quality at quarterback, but you got to catch the balls that come your way, particularly Justin Jefferson. Like, this is a guy who was on pace to be one of the greatest wide receivers in the history of the game. You need to go out there and show that no matter, like other great receivers in the past have made it work with terrible quarterbacks, right? Like, guys have gone to the Hall of Fame without particularly good quarterbacks for the majority of their career. It's a thing. You need to separate yourself. You need to go out there and make the plays that are there to be made. And yeah, you can get frustrated and annoyed by the ones that aren't there, but the receiving core has not been helping McCarthy, who's been awful.
We unlocked what happened with Washington, by the way, too. Because they lost to the Bears, they haven't won since that point. And
right.
That's what happens, right? Whoever wins that game, the losing team, the loser of that game just doesn't win.
Dies for the rest of the season.
That's it. That's what happened last year with the Bears. That's what's happening this year with the Commanders. Do not lose that game where your season's derailed and over. And the Commanders have not won since the week before the Bears game, October 5th. I don't know if Jaden Daniels is coming back or not, but see how that affects things. Commanders fought hard on Monday Night Football. Last 2 games they've lost in overtime, both the Spain game against the Dolphins, last week against Denver. Like, they've been better.
Yeah.
These last couple weeks, far more competitive than they were. That stretch, right, second half against Kansas City, they got whooped up on by the Seahawks on primetime. On Sunday Night Football, they got crushed by Detroit. The last 2 weeks, they've at least been more competitive.
Yeah, they're still fighting hard. I mean, they're on a run of 7 straight defeats, and in the middle of those were some really bad beatdowns. But yeah, they're not winning these games, but they are fighting tough against these. I mean, Denver is a better opponent, Miami, whatever, but they're still fighting hard, and the Vikings are the type of team that, they can definitely beat.
As far as the J.J. McCarthy stuff, again, I think it's been a little bit better than the atrocious production would suggest. What do you need to see some sort of progress here from J.J.?
I mean, I think you need to get.
Or what do the Vikings have to do to pull some progress out of him?
I want to see the efficiency take up. Like, the big plays, the wins and losses, all this. I mean, I don't think he can start next year based off what we've seen so far. I don't think he's capable anymore of turning it around to the point where you can start him next year. I don't think they have enough games left where you can come out of this season and be like, yeah, he's definitely the guy next season.
I mean, if it's a really good 5-game
No,
stretch.
I don't think there's enough games run. I think we've seen too much bad that I don't think he can put together 5 games that win him the starting job next season. I don't think you can do that based off what we've seen so far.
5 games. It's not like there's only 2 games left.
We've seen terrible quarterbacks have 4 or 5 game stretches. You can't give him the starting job based off what we've seen, no matter what he does from this point on. So all you're looking for is signs that he's at least salvageable as anything going forward.
By the way, interesting now knowing how their careers have turned out, but early career Sam Darnold looked awful until, remember there was his rookie season.
Like multiple Decembers where he did this.
He was like the highest PFF grade in the last 4 weeks of the season or something. And we were like, oh, optimism for 2019. And then then it was like seeing ghost Darnold.
Yeah.
And it never really progressed. Geno Smith used to have these really good end of the season runs for like a week or two, and it never really carried over to the next season. So that'd be like the warning of, you're kind of right. Like if you only have a 4 or 5 game sample, it's a good storyline. First year starter, struggled early, finished strong, momentum into the offseason. So even if that does happen, it doesn't necessarily bode well for next year because everything prior to that was so bad.
Every noise you hear coming about, like it's like an article written with a headline that's based off something the Vikings have said during the week, and it always sounds bad. Like, remember where he was like, when J.J. McCarthy himself was sort of saying, it takes time to kind of rework your mechanics from a ground-up type of level. Well, now it's like the Vikings are actually telling him to forget about the small footwork details and just concentrate on not throwing it to the wrong guy. Just forget the details. Just make sure you're throwing it to the guy in the same jersey as you. Let's start there. I mean, this isn't good. Like, I just want to see a basic tick up in efficiency. Like, aside from, he was a guy who ran this, minimal Harbaugh offense at Michigan where he wasn't asked to do an awful lot, but he was efficient when he was asked to do what he was asked to do, right? And that's kind of the thing is, okay, if you're going to be that style of game managing plus type quarterback, you've got to be at least efficient when you're doing that. Otherwise, you're just bad. The thing, like his average yards per attempt number is almost getting worse on the week. His completion rate is like 55%. And okay, some of that is the drop rate, but even the adjusted completion rate isn't high. Stop missing so many easy things. Like just pick up the low-hanging fruit, and then we'll work on the rest.
So Minnesota's favored by 1.5. We'll see if would this affect things if Jaden Daniels starts for you in the pick?
Yeah, I mean they're better with him as the
Mariota
quarterback.
played, gutty performance the other day against a really tough defense, giving Washington a chance to win. Again, I think Mariota's established himself as a pretty good backup in this league.
I mean, I think there's a much larger chance that Mariota makes a significant mistake in the game than Jaden Daniels does with this Flores defense. So
Mariota.
yeah, if Jaden Daniels plays, I think they have a much better chance.
All right, let's make a pick. Minnesota by 1.5. I'll just say it. Will, Minnesota's MIN. That's the abbreviation for Minnesota.
You're going to put that right in.
I type it in every week.
I'm going to go with
it's not the state. It's
Washington,
Minnesota.
who I believe will win the game and therefore cover.
No, it's fine.
Where are you going?
Who'd you take, Washington?
Washington.
I don't know. I still think I don't think JJ's that bad.
He's pretty terrible.
It's not the worst I've ever seen.
It also, by the way, completely, I mean, as if last week didn't enough, it completely undermines all the PR spin that was done last week, that if you really thought Brosmer was that good, would you not want to give him the chance to get off the, get his teeth put back in his head after getting his face kicked in by the Seahawks. You're like, nah, that's all we needed to see. Confirmed. We thought he was a baller, and then we watched Seattle, and either we decided, yeah, we were right, or nah, we were wrong.
I'm taking Minnesota. 2 playoff teams from last year with high expectations sitting there at 3-9 and 4-8.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting offseason for both because, again, I think Minnesota still has a pretty good core nucleus of talent, and I think Washington also does. They're just getting a tick older at a lot of those spots.
Minnesota's
with
a
Lauren
fascinating.
and Tunsil and Debo, and Bobby Wagner. They're just older in Washington, but they have Jaden Daniels at quarterback. It's going to be an interesting offseason for both teams.
The Vikings are a fascinating example of how I think you can just get unlucky sometimes. Like, they had this difficult dilemma that they were presented with. And actually in several different ways. You had Darnold, but you didn't know what he was based off the way that season ended. You had Daniel Jones, who you had stashed on the practice squad, who you tried to bring back, but he thought he had a better shot of starting somewhere else. And then you had J.J. McCarthy, who you may or may not have wanted at the top of the draft, and he was the sort of heir in waiting, and his rookie season had been taken away by an injury, and you end up having to roll with that. You decide, okay, Darnold's gone somewhere else. We'll pump all that money into the offensive line. Really make the situation around McCarthy as good as it can possibly be. And then most of that offensive line's been hurt all seasons. It's like, I mean, there's only so much you can do before you're just at the mercy of getting unlucky.
That's why at some point they come out of this. I'll take Minnesota. Harry's taking Washington. That's why. They'll be better.
All right.
4 more games here. New Orleans Saints at the Tampa Bay Bucks. It's Sunday at 1. Tampa favored by 8.5 here. 2-10 Saints at the 7-5 Bucks. With the Panthers on a bye, Panthers are 7-6, a half game behind the Bucks. So the Bucks are either going to be, at the end of the day, tied for first in the South, or they'll have a full game up on Carolina.
Mm-hmm. I'm almost, I don't know what to say about Carolina anymore. They're
on bye, so we don't have to talk about it.
Good. Tampa Bay, they're a significantly better football team than the Saints, I think. This was one where I was like, it's a pretty big line. I'm like, yeah, I thought, the Saints. I'm like, no, they're not going to cover that. The Bucs are significantly better than the Saints.
Bucs struggling a little bit on the defensive side of the ball in recent weeks. I think Tyler Shuck's been okay. Making some nice throws down the field. Got to work on his consistency generally. He did have the bad pick last week against Miami, but he led a nice little comeback for the Saints.
Yeah, he did. The most important thing is we get the second start in his career for Irish kicker Charlie Smith, who I will continue to stand for, even though he ghosted me during the week. Now, maybe he ghosted me.
Your text?
Maybe I don't have his correct phone number. Who can tell? But I sent texts. Texts were not replied.
Is it the wrong Charlie Smith?
I don't know. All I know is I sent some texts. No texts were replied to. That could mean he ghosted me. It could mean I have the wrong number. No way of knowing at this point. Well, there is a way of knowing, but I haven't been motivated enough to do anything about it. Anyway, he gets his second start. Apparently a 56-yard field goal was the third longest debut field goal from any kicker in NFL history.
He is what?
It's the third longest first kick of any field goal kicker in NFL history.
Pretty good.
It's pretty good going.
Number 1 for an Irishman.
And then nails his first onside kick as well. I mean, you can't argue with the math.
Can't argue with it. Bucky Irving made his return last week.
Yep.
For the Bucs. I think their run game against the Saints, trying to just see how, Bucky got a big part of the workload, but they do have that ability to have a little bit of power with Tucker and Rashad White, kind of mix things up. But they went right back to Bucky Irving, and I think the more they feed him, he'll have one of those games where he drops 150 and maybe 50 as a receiver, and one of those Gibbs types of games where you're like, man, this dude's a big play threat. Not the same way, not the same speed as Gibbs, but the same type of big play ability. So another week of Bucky Irving, I think they could have a nice week from him.
Yeah, it is interesting because they have this backfield where all of the running backs are good, and yet when they're all healthy, they do just give the entire workload basically to Bucky Irving.
And then we'll see, again, this past game for Tampa Bay, Mike Evans is back practicing. He's got the practice window. They might have this culmination point. Jalen McMillan's back practicing. Evans back practicing. Godwin did some nice things last week, minus a drop. Take a little pressure off the first rounder, Emeka Ibuka, and all of a sudden, boom, they're loaded at receiver potentially. And it might not even be the same Mike Evans, but you're still loaded. Like, you have a deep threat in Evans, opens things up, could help Tampa Bay in that pass game peak at the right time, especially with those 2 Panthers games coming up down the stretch.
Yeah, it's definitely the Bucs also have got to be concerned with kind of looking ahead to that Carolina game. I mean, on the one hand, they're probably right to. I don't know that much
It matters the most.
Yeah, like I don't know much means anything other than those games. On the other hand, that you could easily drop one of these next two to the Saints or Atlanta, particularly because they're division games, because you're so focused on the Panthers and making sure you win those games.
And then from a Tyler Shuck perspective, just another one of those tests going up against the Todd Bowles defense, being able to recognize blitzes, and I don't know if they'll be able to get much going on the ground, so it could be one of those a lot of pressure on the quarterback type of games against Tampa Bay. So a nice little test for the rookie.
Bowles' defense has to have a really good record against young quarterbacks, right? Like those are the guys that I think he causes the most problems to.
Yeah, even though they've struggled a little bit in recent weeks. Anyway, Tampa Bay by 8.5.
Like I said, I think the Bucs are just way better than that. I think they're going to win and probably get to double digits.
Man, that's a lot of points. They have not had an efficient passing attack in weeks now. By the way, the Baker injury watch, too. Just keep an eye on everything around that left shoulder. Didn't affect him a ton last week. I thought, man, his best throw was that red zone throw to Chris Godwin. So he showed some good stuff. I would also prefer that he does not scramble as much and lower that shoulder and try to take those big hits like him and Jackson Dart just need to chill.
Definitely. I don't think you're taking that out of Baker at this point.
But I'll take Tampa Bay to cover the 8.5. Miami Dolphins at the New York Jets. Dolphins favored by 3 in New York. The 1% still alive. Miami Dolphins here at 5-7.
Theoretically.
Against the 3-9 Jets. Special teams wonders wonder in New York.
Yep, special teams wonders with the Jets. Tyrod Taylor making this offense look significantly better despite not really having any receivers to work with. The Jets are more interesting with him at quarterback.
Yeah, it's kind of like what Jacoby Brissett did in Arizona. Like he just stepped in and I think made the passing game a little bit more, certainly more high volume in Arizona, but a little bit more efficient, a little bit more on schedule. I'm interested in seeing this Dolphins run defense again has been much better in recent weeks. Jordan Brooks playing really good football. Linebacker, we know the number of times that the Jets like to run their Service Academy offense where they just run like crazy. And Dolphins have a chance, the way they've been playing, to maybe make the run-heavy Jets a little bit more one-dimensional than I would have expected, say, a month ago with this Dolphins run defense.
And then can the Jets bottle up Devon Achane, who I think should be, job number 1, 2, and 3 for this defense to try and figure out. I think the rest of the Miami offense you can live with, or you can force the ball in those directions. Like if you can take away Achane, I think this Dolphins offense basically ceases to function.
Yeah, in the what to watch for, it's Achane every week. Last week I thought Tua got away with some stuff. He had one interception, one that was overturned, a couple other risky passes. I think he's got to play a cleaner game against this Jets team. Dolphins have won 3 straight. If there was a path for them, like where are they if they win out and go 10 and if 10-7 can get you in, but they're the same thing we're talking about with the Bengals. Like you have to win out. They've got the Jets this week. They're at Pittsburgh next week. Is that a Monday night game? And then they've got the Bengals, Bucks, and Patriots. It's not an easy road at all.
I
can't win 5 in a row until you win the first one, though.
I honestly don't think that they're.
If they win their next 5, that would be an 8-game winning streak to finish the season for the Dolphins.
And I don't think they'd make the playoffs. They're mathematically alive. I don't think they're practically alive.
All right.
They're not even listed on Timo's, wins by or percentage by wins graphic. He's just
They're only 1 game behind the Chiefs.
He is also dismissing the Dolphins as having any chance of doing this.
There's a chance at the end of this weekend, the Dolphins and Chiefs are both 6-7. Just saying.
But they're in different situations.
Just saying. All right, anything else to watch for in this game? The Jets currently hold the number 7 overall pick. That's theirs. And then they have the Colts pick at number 23. So they're sitting at number 7 right now with a 3-9 record. They've got 4 teams all tied at 3-9. So Cleveland's got pick 5 as of right now. Cleveland, Washington, Jets, and Arizona all 3-9. So battling for that top 5 to 8 pick right now. And then the Dolphins would be picking 12th. Because we're at this point of the season where we talk tankathon stuff. And my weekly Jets update, you've got Fernando Mendoza playing in the Big Ten Championship. I should have mentioned this for Browns fans because our friend Dane Brugler just had the Browns trading up for Fernando Mendoza out of Indiana.
He's not sold that Shador's winning the job?
He's not. So he's got the Browns trading up for Mendoza. Jets will be in the mix for Mendoza. And he's got his biggest challenge in Indy, in the Dome, Big Ten Championship against Ohio State this weekend. Mendoza against Ohio State. Keep an eye on. We're not going this year. You didn't want to go? You want to go now, don't you? You want the meal?
No, not really.
I got basketball doubleheader this weekend for Teddy and Harry. We're
nice.
Back to that now. And they're scheduling games right in the middle of the NFL Saturday college football playoff in a couple weeks.
I liked Michigan defending the M after the game. They weren't leaving they were like, we're not leaving this field and letting you stick a flag in this M. We defend the M in this building.
As they say, they did a better job of defending the M than they did, the painted
end
of the field.
Yeah.
The end zone.
Yeah. I like that though. I'm like, no. We're not.
But like, Ohio State,
we got our ass
up.
kicked,
yeah.
but we're not gonna let you disrespect us like that.
Not like we did to you last year.
Right.
They made Jack Sawyer cry last year, but it's not going to happen this year for us.
No.
In reverse. But Ohio State classed it up, and they were like, we're not doing anything anyway.
Well, I mean, they were basically shoot back from doing it.
Ryan Day.
Yeah. Ryan Day was like, get the hell out of here.
He kept him back.
Take your flag away. You're not doing that.
All the Ohio State fans that live in and around us were quite excited to finally get back in the win column against Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's all I got on this Jets-Dolphins game. Talking Ohio State, Michigan.
Yeah.
Miami by 3. Where are you going to go?
Miami. Win and cover.
Man, I got the Jets. I don't know why. Probably because they're third in special teams. EPA added. That's why.
Just one big return away.
So remember this moment.
From
I'm
taking
the
open.
Jets because of special teams.
Yeah. You, Mr. Special Teams hater.
And Tua in the Northeast.
Tua in the Northeast.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be cold.
Don't forget that. Yeah. I think he's only played one game in the Meadowlands. Gotta check that. He's always hurt.
Yeah.
For those games. Denver Broncos at the Las Vegas Raiders. Broncos favored by 7.5 here. Over under 40.5. Remember, they played a 10-7 game just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
In Denver.
And I feel like that's the right kind of score line for the Raiders offense. Like that offensive line going up against this Denver defense, you struggle to see how that's going to go well. So that part of it will probably be similar. The question becomes, will Denver's offense show up this time?
Yeah, not much better last week after firing Chip Kelly.
For the
no
Raiders.
room to run for Ashton Genty.
Yeah, for the Raiders.
For the Raiders. Not much better last week. And then Denver, they survived against Washington, played a good game. Washington played a really good game against them. Denver let him back in it a little bit with the Bo Nix interception. But again, I think overall, I trust Bo Nix despite his inconsistencies.
I mean, certainly more than
that pass game.
Yeah, certainly more than the Raiders.
Make plays when they need to.
The Washington game was interesting because it did provide a little bit of a blueprint for how to attack the Denver defense. Like, they were able to run the ball. They tried to get the ball out of Mariota's hands quite quickly, as much as they could, and generally that was kind of working. Like, they did neutralize that pass rush probably better than anybody else has. Now, is Geno Smith and are the Raiders collectively capable of replicating that? I would say probably not, but it's at least an interesting thing where someone has said, this is the game plan to attack this defense. Can you execute that game plan? Yeah, it's on you. But here it is. Like, this is the plan.
The one thing I haven't studied, I don't know if anybody has, I don't know how much it affects things, but they went to overtime against Washington. How many plays did they?
The overtime hangover?
They had 90 plays on defense. And remember, both teams just looked exhausted. Like, Zach Ertz could barely get up off the ground to try to catch the game winner. And 90 plays on defense for Denver. Is there a residual effect the following week when you're on defense that often? Because it was also the best job Washington, any team had done slowing down Denver's pass rush.
Yeah.
So they ran the ball. They also protected well. And it wasn't all just schemed up plays from Washington. Like, they held decent pockets for Mariota to get the ball down the field in crunch time a few times. So is that just a little blip for Denver, where every other game you were like, no one handles this pass rush.
Yeah.
No one handles this pass rush. Like the edges are in the backfield. They create havoc up the middle. They blitz at the right time. The pocket's collapsing from all angles. And you didn't sense that last week, and they looked a little fatigued toward the end. So I'm just curious if there's any kind of hangover effect or if that was just a one-week blip for the pass rush. But they had Pat Surtain back. He's great. Riley Moss still playing well, cutting down on the penalties compared to earlier in the season.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Denver's good.
I think that was a little over. I think he was being unnecessarily targeted with some of those penalties.
Wow. Ouch. Denver technically the number 2 seed here because they've played one fewer game than the Patriots, who are 11-2. Denver's 10-2. End of the week, chance that they're tied at 11-2, battling for that number 1 seed in the AFC.
Playoffs going through Mile High.
Meanwhile,
like
the Raiders
late 90s.
have the number 4 pick as of right now. They're tied, so they're 2-10. Saints are 2-10. Giants are on bye, but they're 2-11. So at the end of the week, the Raiders could be tied, at least with the Giants at 2-11, maybe the Saints at 2-11. We'll see what the tiebreakers do there. But currently, Raiders would be picking 4th in the NFL draft for YouTube Big Ten Championship this week. Fernando Mendoza against the Ohio State Buckeyes. Mm-hmm. Keep an eye on the quarterback situation if you're the Raiders.
Oh, Gino's going to be Pete's going to be so sad when he has to move on from Gino.
Man, it's just bad for the Raiders right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's been a disaster, their dynamic. It was supposed to be so much better. Bringing in Pete Carroll, bringing in Geno Smith, it was supposed to make them competitive every single week, and they really haven't been.
I mean, even if they won 6 or 7 games, I just thought it'd be competitive. I thought they'd steal a win against
the offensive
Kansas
line,
City or Denver. They would steal some wins against some better teams.
The offensive line has ruined everything. I mean, it wasn't great on paper heading into the season, and they lost all their best players from it. It's now a complete catastrophe, and they're going up against the best pass rush in the NFL. That alone should mean that this game is comfortably a Denver win.
Meanwhile, Denver, their 2 losses are walk-off field goals against the Colts and the Chargers. They're 10-2. I think they've trailed in every game and come back. So they've got a little bit of that to them. They also have, depends on how you want to spin all these things, right?
Yeah.
They're finding ways to win, or they beat the Jets by 2 and the Eagles by 4 with a crazy fourth quarter comeback, and the Giants by 1 with a crazy fourth quarter comeback, and the Texans by 3 and the Raiders by 3 when they, it's the Raiders by 3 at home on Thursday night in an ugly game. But they are finding ways to win.
I mean, they beat the Raiders and the Chiefs by the same scoreline.
They did.
Same margin.
The path for them to the number 1 seed, Raiders this week. They've got the Packers in an interesting game next week, Super Bowl rematch. Jaguars, Chiefs, and Chargers. So this is very similar to the Chargers finish. Remember last week I said Chargers have to beat the Raiders, get that out of the way, and then you have the tough games coming up. Same thing for Denver. 4 playoff caliber teams: Packers, Jags, Chiefs, and Chargers.
Yep.
To finish the season. So got to take care of business this week.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you going to go?
Denver.
By 7.5?
Yep.
On the road?
Yep.
I can't believe I'm going to do this. Raiders keep it close. Denver's playing a lot of close games. Not saying they lose. It's going to be within 7.5, though. I'll take the Raiders to cover, Denver to win. Harry will take Denver to win and cover. And we'll wrap it up with the Los Angeles Rams at the Arizona Cardinals. Rams favored by 8.5, coming off their tough loss against the Carolina Panthers. They're 9-3.
Their inexplicable loss.
Tough loss. Inexplicable. Cardinals are 3-9. Feisty 3-9, but 3-9.
Yeah. 3-9 with one of the most prolific passing quarterbacks in the NFL in Jacoby Brissett.
Over-unders 48.5. I'm so annoyed by the Cardinals because the last 2 years, especially 2 years ago, remember Kyler Murray was missing most of the year. They were completely rebuilding. They probably had the worst roster in the NFL, and they were the feisty Cardinals, right? They're just outplaying their talent level. And then last year, they weren't that talented, but they were outplaying their talent level in a ton of games. This year, they added a ton of talent, and now they're just losing every game by 1 score. Go figure. They're not outplaying their talent. Now they're competitive, and they're easily one of those teams. When 1-score games, it's like a couple plays here and there. You could be 6-3 instead of 3 or whatever. You could be 8-4 instead of 3-9 easily, but they're 3-9.
Yeah, well, so the thing is, like Jacoby Brissett has. This is a little bit like when Joe Flacco kept circulating around teams and like hanging 350 on people, but was never actually playing that well. Like Jacoby Brissett is prolific. He's out here throwing 55 times a game and racking up 300, 400 yards every outing. But he's not actually playing so well that they're winning games. Like he's done this interesting thing where I think he's highlighted the problems with Kyler Murray at quarterback. Like if you put Jacoby Brissett in there, he's a much more conventional NFL quarterback, and he's sort of unlocked. Look, actually, Michael Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., Greg Dortch, Trey McBride, the running game, like these things are good. It's just that Kyler Murray playing the game the way he has to play the game, you're so caught up in trying to make an offense work for him that nothing else is functioning properly. Jacoby Brissett kind of highlights that, but at the end of the day, he's still Jacoby Brissett, and that's worse than most quarterbacks in the NFL. So that, I think, is where they are right now, which is he's like unlocked the movement of the ball relative to Kyler Murray, but you're still in the situation of having him as your starting quarterback.
But
I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying he's not good.
They've created a bunch of chunk plays, like the intermediate level has been opened up. Like there's just the pass game, as you said, it's a little bit more on time and on schedule, and it's given Michael Wilson a chance to really make a ton of plays. Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr. So I think, again, best 3-9 team in the league right now. I don't know, Cardinals. Best 3-9 team in the last 10 years. They're a feisty team still. They're not stealing any wins like they used to. They used to steal some wins.
Yeah.
In their feistiness. And the Rams, it's a big one for the Rams. All the playoff positioning, 9-3. They missed a big opportunity to separate themselves. They're no longer the number one seed. That's the Bears. But Bears are playing the Packers this week. If the Rams win, they're right back on top of the NFC. They still have the Seahawks in a couple weeks in a Thursday night game. We should do a watch along for that one as well. But yeah, see if the Rams can bounce back here from last week.
I think they're comfortably a better team. They should comfortably win this game. The only thing that would make you pause is it's a division game, and this division, more than any other, is crazy.
Stafford had the 2 picks, one a little fluky, but just, keep an eye if there's like cluster picks coming up here. Cluster picks for Stafford. Like he's not normally a 30-4 touchdown to interception ratio guy, or 32,
Correct.
whatever it is.
In fact,
he's
not
career, normally that guy. So do you start to see a lot of that regress back? Not that he's going to play worse or anything. I think he's playing great. I think he's probably should be the MVP favorite despite what happened last week. I think he's been the best quarterback from start to finish this year. But just keep an eye because he's generally aggressive and puts the ball in harm's way more enough to be like a 10-12 interception type of guy than 4 or 5.
Yeah, throughout his career, he's actually skewed high-ish in terms of turnover-worthy play rate. He's not one of the most careful quarterbacks in the NFL in those terms. So, you would expect that to swing back in the other direction at some point.
There's no chance Kyler comes back, right?
That would be a bummer for everybody.
It's like watching Brissett feed everybody.
Yeah. Nobody wants to see that, including the Cardinals, I think.
All right. It's been 2.5 hours. We usually go 3. This is a quick show.
Tight show. I'm going with the Rams. Win and cover.
Did I take the Cardinals last week? I think I did. Yeah, I'll take the Cardinals. Within 8.5.
This is the week where I'm on a run. I'm
Are you
closing
all
the
favorites
gap
right now? You're just grabbing all the big point favorites.
I doubt I'm all favorites, but
last few.
I'm closing the gap on the top of the pick'em thing. I'm tied for 10th. I'm making my move, and then this is the week I have like a 3-game week. Just sink back into the middle of nowhere.
There's a lot of pressure on you. No,
this is still. I'm still the underdog. I'm still coming up on the rail. Nobody's thinking about me yet.
Sam Monson Smells still holds the cards.
And Maddox 29.
Yeah.
2 of them. They're still clear.
It's all in the Discord if you guys haven't joined the Discord. All right, I'll take the Rams. No, I'll take Arizona. Harry's going to take the Rams. Take Arizona to keep it within the 8.5 here. Appreciate everybody being here all week. Don't forget, in the description, raising money for Heritage House Men's Recovery Program here in Cincinnati. Description has the link. My pinned tweet also has the link. You guys can get in there as a GoFundMe. Raising money for them for Christmas. We're going to get some Christmas clothes and maybe a special dinner for all those guys. A group that I'm associated with. And if we get our $2,000 donations here, if we get $2,000 goal, I'll be throwing on the elf suit
Throwing on the elf costume.
Going to the Kenwood Mall.
Yeah. We have to give a big shout out as well to Mo Hall, who continues to just drop the Santa gifts of membership in the chat, and then also to Robert Sutton, who signed up all by himself.
Yeah, thank you, Mo Hall. Thank you, Robert. Welcome. And those 20 new recipients of the gifts can now join us tonight.
I mean, Walt likes to think of himself as, the best chat member, and yet Walt's not even a member.
Walt hasn't even signed up.
He hasn't even been lucky enough to get a membership.
Might be better
when the free ones are issued out.
Might be better to separate him from the group.
I'm just saying, in terms of who the number one member would be, it's
He's number one in the live chats, which is good. It'll be live for 30 minutes. You guys can all join, and then we'll have members only for the watch along tonight. Cowboys and Lions. We usually go live right around 8 o'clock for the 8:15 start time of the game.
Yep.
Anything else?
Nope.
All right, that's it for us today. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you tonight for the watch along, and then Monday morning with our Week 14 NFL review.